Hello, everyone.
Welcome to the U Sports community.
A community striving to enhance youth sports.
I'm Taylor Medic.
I'm Sean Connaughton.
And I'm Matt Ma.
Thank you for joining us today. The U Sports community is proudly presented by Nuance Hockey and Ma Golf.
Nuance Hockey provides detail-driven on- and off-ice development in the Edmonton area. For more information, please visit nuance.hockey.
Ma Golf provides lead coaching for golfers of all skill levels at the Millwoods Golf Club in Edmonton.
This episode is produced by Nick Hussey of Hussey Multimedia, and hydration is provided by Earthwater. We are very excited to have Lindsey Kotylak joining the community for today's podcast. Lindsey was born in Edmonton in June of 1971.
Growing up, Lindsey was exposed to multiple sports, including hockey, golf, badminton, squash, baseball, volleyball, soccer, track and field, curling, and rock climbing. Of those sports, golf and hockey were his main focuses from childhood through high school.
Lindsey has been a PGA professional for the past 25 years. For the past 15 years, his focus in the PGA has been providing his coaching and club fitting services to students of all ages and skill levels. Lindsey has taught well over 10,000 lessons during this period, and he is currently the head teaching professional at the Edmonton Country Club.
Lindsey, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us today on the youth sports community. How you doing?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like you played every sport known to man, but what's your earliest memory from participating in youth sports?
I don't know. Just as a kid growing up, parents always gave us the opportunity to just be exposed to anything we really wanted to do. And it was up to us. It was really up to us what we wanted to do. We never really got pushed. So, hockey was a big one growing up. That's probably one of the first ones we got into. And then golf came kind of quickly after that. So our summers and our winters were pretty much planned out for us.
So maybe diving into hockey first, what are kind of some of your first memories with hockey? Were they in a competitive format or were they just maybe messing around at the outdoor rink with friends?
Both. Competitive. I mean, back in our days growing up, it was like a game a week, a practice a week. And if you wanted anything else, it was kind of up to you. And we were lucky enough to have outdoor rinks by us. Back then, winters were a little colder. We had ice consistently throughout the year. So, I mean, parents were always trying to pull us off the rinks.
That's awesome. And going to the outdoor rink, was that something that, you found yourself drawn to, on your own, or was it something that it was an event with some neighbors and some friends, or how did that kind of start for you?
Well, I mean, all of our friends in the neighborhood, like we're all Canadian kids, we all grew up playing hockey. So the outdoor rinks was just like a staple. Go home, have dinner after school, and then it was out to the rinks if it was a decent night. And that means like minus 25 too.
Yeah, for sure.
Was it more like a social thing? Like, hey, I want to make sure I hang with my friends? Or was it like, hey, I want to make sure I get better at hockey, bit of both, or just something fun to do?
Oh, definitely both, and fun to do. And the nice thing out there is like you had everyone from, little kids to adults that were all playing shinny. Everyone just throws their sticks in the middle and you go at it. And we had some pretty good times out there. I mean, there was a couple times where some of the old Oilers came out, like Gretzky and Messier, and it was just a really fun time to see the kids just following them around the rinks. So it was pretty cool to see that in the early days of the Oilers.
Favorite position that you got to play?
I played a lot of them, but defense. Yeah, and kind of more of an offensive defenseman.
Nice. And just for our Edmonton listeners, which rink were you usually at?
It was in Riverbend.
In Riverbend?
Yeah, in
Nice.
Brookside.
Nice. Yeah, I don't know if there's NHLers still going out there now, but maybe the secret's out.
We'll do a photo shoot every now and then. You'll see. I can't remember who I saw last, but you'll see it happen. But usually it's like filmed now.
Right.
It's staged.
Yeah. Like back then, there was no.
Back then, they just showed up.
Yeah.
There was no media, no nothing. They just, hey, oh my God, that's like Wayne Gretzky out there.
By the time you could get on the phone to call someone and get down there, it'd be too late probably.
Pretty much. So
that's so cool. And how about the competitive side? What are some of your first memories from playing with your team?
Just grew up playing Southside all the way through till about 18. And knew I wasn't going anywhere with it at the end, and just decided to hang it up after high school. But it was just a lot of fun. Met a lot of people, played a lot of hockey, rinks in the morning. It was just something to do and something to keep you active as a kid.
That's awesome. And in terms of all those other sports that you were fortunate to play too growing up, how were you able to mix those in? Was it balanced throughout the year? Did you have certain seasons where you would focus on kind of one more than the other? Or, curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't doing all of those at the same time.
Yeah.
Obviously. So like growing up through school, you're playing the volleyball, stuff like that, track and field in school. Later on in life, it was, got into rock climbing and like university and did a little bit of that. But the sports kind of come and go, and the ones that you're doing all the time kind of stick with you. So, and that was golf and hockey. So that was primarily what we were doing to stay active.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You don't mention bowling on here. Are you a big bowler still?
Yeah, I was a big bowler. I haven't bowled since COVID.
Oh, really? Okay.
That was more in my adult life. So, yeah.
So that was started later. Okay.
That was started later.
And so for golf in particular, because obviously that's kind of the second major sport that you started to focus on, when did that start to become a big part of your life?
That was probably a big part of my life back in the late 70s. I mean, mom and dad, we were lucky enough to be members of the Derrick Club. So we had an opportunity to play at a private club as young kids. And I mean, by the time we were 10, 11 years old, we were exposed to it so much that we were good enough to go out and play on our own there. They had certain rules for juniors at the time. So we didn't need to be with our parents. And then basically in the summers from then till 18, the Derrick basically raised me.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Pretty much just get there in the morning. Were you able to bike there kind of thing too? Or did you get dropped off? But
dropped off, bike there, scooter as I got older.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
No, I remember the same thing, like your breakfast there probably, or you go play or you practice, and then like you're there legitimately like sun up to sundown.
Yeah, probably a little too much. I mean, high school was a little too close to the Derrick, so sometimes I was like not where I should have been.
Worst places you can be hanging out though than a golf course.
Yeah, and that's where the parents, they knew if we were at the Derrick, we're going to be taken care of. So
yeah.
Also, I mean, the other part of that too was you had to learn how to conduct yourself in like a responsible manner at a pretty young age.
Well, very much so.
I feel like something golf's really helpful with juniors. If in order to play on your own, you got to start playing with adults when you're 12 years old. You can't be acting inappropriately, and the respect part and everything.
Yeah, you learn that quickly there, absolutely, in that kind of environment. I mean, back in the day, we had Daryl McDonald as an assistant there, and he would kind of pull you aside if you were doing something wrong and tell you right away. So
it was Macker that told you.
Oh, it was Macker and Ketter.
Okay. Carey or would have been Warren? No,
Warren and Carey.
Well, both. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because they all worked in there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now
that's dating me.
Were you having lessons as a junior? Like Matt and I were talking about this before the show, how, even back when, we were juniors, getting lessons was starting to become more normalized. Again, it was still kind of maybe once every week or once every couple weeks, sort of at the most. And then you're kind of on your own, which we thought was really healthy, especially contrasting that with a team sport environment. When you were a junior, were you getting a lot of lessons, or was that still kind of all left up to you?
You know what? Our generation, our group that we had at the Derrick growing up really didn't do the lesson thing. It wasn't really big at the time. And we had a massive group of like 12, 16 kids that we kind of all just worked on it on our own. Like we figured it out on our own, basically. And we did it just from hanging out at the club all day, playing a lot, practicing. But it was just, if you wanted to learn it, you just went and did it yourself.
Yeah, I'm guessing there were a lot of like putting games and playing for
lost a lot of hot dogs putting,
hot dogs, Coke, stuff like that.
Just put on the parents' account.
Yeah.
I think it's a big part of like growing up or learning junior. Like golf's kind of weird that way, where you just have to create competition elsewhere.
Yeah,
like on the range, on the course with your buddies. Go play an emergency 9, stuff like that.
Well, even back in our day, there wasn't like all the junior tours that are out there nowadays. I mean, we had our club championship, we had the city junior, and maybe the Alberta junior, and that was the three big ones. That was it. Other than that, you're just playing golf for fun.
Mm-hmm. That was your way to simulate the competition, which I think can still be like. I guess looking at junior golf now, like, do you think there's maybe too many tournaments available, or?
The kids have to really, I know one of the juniors that I teach that is a high level junior trying to get into a college scholarship. We have to sit down and really kind of plan out his year, because there is too many. If you try to go to all of them, you're going to burn out.
And money, yeah.
And you can't stay at that high level for that long a period.
Yeah, if you look at even on like on the PGA Tour, like they don't have the off season now, so certain guys, they always feel like they can't make the adjustments they need for the next season because they have the wraparound season so long. Especially with juniors now, like I know there's some that are traveling down to the States in the off season now too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like last year, the junior that I was coaching did go down to the States. This year, he's not doing that, and I think he's learning now where to take the breaks, so he can kind of stay at that high level that he wants to be at throughout the year. And with him getting into college next year too, that's going to be at the end of a season. So that's something that we have to really kind of look at. So he doesn't go to college burnt out, and that's right when they start. So,
right. Did you find playing all these other extra sports, did they help? I know with me they did, but did they help help you in your golf world? Like, playing a team sport, then going back to golf, just like the work ethic or.
Absolutely. And also being exposed to multiple sports, I think makes you a more rounded athlete. I mean, I think you get some of these kids now that are starting at a young age and saying, okay, this is what I want to do. And you're focused on that one task. I mean, it's been kind of proven that it can generate like injury based on like repetitive motions. And doing different sports and having all different types of motions, I think you're a better rounded athlete by being exposed to that.
Yeah. And kind of on that point, when you were growing up and starting to get into golf, how did you mesh hockey specifically? Was hockey something that you pretty much parked for the whole summer? Was there still a little bit of skating that you kind of did over the summer, or was it pretty much summer was golf, hockey was winter?
It was parked. Yeah. It was one season and then the next.
Yeah.
There wasn't any kind of dry land training for hockey. I mean, later on when I was 16, 17, 18, we had a few coaches that wanted a little bit of extra stuff from us at that point. But yeah, it was just winter's done. Let's pull out the golf clubs. Summer's done. Let's get the skates out.
Did you find that having those boundaries around the seasons allowed you to be energized and hungry when the other one rolled back around?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because you look forward to it, right?
For sure. Yeah.
It almost seems like our climate up here being, where we are in the country in North America, is our climate and I guess golf season up here almost conducive to, you mentioned, getting a break from the game and competing for 4 to 5 months and having that time off. It almost seems it could be a good break for younger golfers rather than going 24/7, 365.
It is. I mean, nowadays we have all sorts of indoor facilities that the kids can go to and train year round now. But I mean, for us, I know that it was something that we always looked forward to, just getting away from it a little bit and then coming back to it. It's amazing how quickly it came back. So, and it kept you in love with the game too, right? You didn't get bored with it. So,
and you mentioned a lot of self-learning, self-teaching, and with that junior group at the Derrick, were there some older guys that you looked up to, and that's how you picked up on practice routines or any sort of little things like that?
Oh yeah, we had a couple of really good older juniors. I don't know if you would know any of the names, but absolutely. When we're younger, we're looking up to the older guys, seeing what they're doing, seeing how much they practice, what they put into their game. And, you tried to emulate some of these guys growing up.
What about the PGA guys? Like, did you ever get a chance to play with Kerry, Ketter, or Daryl when you were junior?
Yeah.
Because they were both really good players at that time, for sure.
Yeah, we definitely would get out and play with them. They were actually pretty good with the juniors, so they would go out and do a lot of that stuff with us.
Nice.
From time to time. But yeah, I mean, we were there all the time. So
yeah, it's pretty awesome that you weren't necessarily getting specific lessons from the pros at that time, but they were still, it sounds like, providing like a big level of mentorship for you guys and accountability and, just allowing you guys to develop as people instead of maybe just finding those specific things that you had to do with your golf swing.
Yeah. I mean, just playing with them, you'd see what they did on the golf course, and you could learn a lot just by playing with better players.
Yeah.
So for us as juniors, it was a lot of fun because they'd get little competitions. I know when I was over at the Mayfair and Maddie was a junior, I always had little competitions with the kids out there.
You know what? I got to bring, it's good thing you bring this up because I remember at one point you said, if anyone beats you, you're going to jump in the lake.
On 18.
Or the pond, sorry.
The pond on 18, yeah.
We never Lindsey should have jumped in one time. I remember this and he never jumped in.
Did you beat him?
No, I think it was Mark you the first time.
It was
anyways.
Brandon Marqueux, yeah. Did he make that putt on 18?
I remember he beat you for sure.
He did. Okay, yeah.
That's all I remember. I don't remember exactly how
I remember
happened.
thinking that I might lose my job. So
And what was the game? Was it a full match or
It
what
was a
the-
stroke play.
it was just a stroke play match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Brandon shot like 1 under, 2 under. It was something like one of his better rounds, especially at that point in time. So I remember even for him, that was a really big moment. So I think he still remembers it. Because Lindsey was like,
I know I do.
we're kids. Yeah, we're kids. And Lindsey was a pretty good player. So if you can beat him, then it's like, oh, like, you know, things are going a lot better. So I remember that was a big carrot for us to try to beat Lindsey when we were kids for sure.
Oh, and that's what Daryl and Ketter did for us as well at the club growing up. And we also had access to, I can't remember his name now. That's for another story.
It'll come to you.
Was he another pro there or was it an outside teaching professional?
It was another pro that worked there.
Yeah.
It was another pro that worked there.
Did they have any of the pro junior joint events back then? I remember as a junior being able to play in 1 or 2 of those, and that was a pretty cool experience.
I'm not sure if they did. If they did, I never took part in any of that. There was probably a couple other guys at the club that the pros would want to take for that, but I don't recall any of that.
Junior interclub?
Junior club, definitely.
Yeah. Any memories from that? I remember that being a ton of fun at that age.
Super fun. It was a lot of fun. Lots of memories, actually. Some I can't really say on the podcast, but good times for sure. There were always stuff that we looked forward to for sure.
That's the fun thing in junior inter club is in Canada, it's pretty much your only chance to play golf as a team. Like the high school golf here is very minimal, and there's a little bit of university golf around here. But until I went to college, like there's no team golf in Canada, so that's our one shot. Basically, was that.
And you got to go play all the other nice private courses as well too. So that was a big plus for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you play golf within the school system?
In the school system, yeah. At Harry Ainley, we did.
Yep.
I was on the golf team. That's not really. It's like basically 1 or 2 events.
For the
it really wasn't anything massive.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, pretty limited.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to Matt's point, it is pretty cool to think of interclub being kind of your first opportunity within golf to have that team aspect. Did you find your experience with hockey allowed you to maybe resonate with the interclub situations a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anything you learn in a team aspect is going to help you in other parts of your lives for sure.
Yeah.
And we're jumping ahead a bit, but yeah, because I know with like college golf, it's a big adjustment for certain people, especially from Canada, is where we don't have a team. All of a sudden you're with a team. So like the whole mindset changes. I know this. Did you play college golf at all? Or do you have any students that have played where they can relate to like the team aspect thing changing once they got there?
I myself didn't play any college golf. And as of right now, no, I've got a student that will be playing college golf as of next year. But that's about it for that.
And for your summers with golf, like, again, going back into our memories, like Matt and I, and he talked about a few of these examples of, how we just always have those putting games. And I mean, for me personally, those are the times that I really remember is playing and competing with Matt and Danny Wakeling, where it was the trio for a lot of years. There was still the odd time where, I'd go to the range, especially after a lesson with Gary or something, and just try to put a few more reps into something specific. But a big portion of the time was spent with that small group and competing and pushing each other. What are your memories from the balance of that? Like the amount of time that you spent truly on your own working on skills versus with that group of friends that were working with each other?
Oh, it would have been 80% with the friends.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
I mean that we did it to push ourselves. That's exactly it. all those games, every putt that you're sinking for the Masters win or to beat your buddy. I mean, that's the one thing that you wanted to do is you always wanted to pound your buddies down.
Yeah.
Right? Totally. So you wanted to be the king there. So,
Totally.
and that made it fun for us, right? That's why we were able to hang out there for 8 hours a day and do it like day after day.
Yeah.
How many other courses were you exposed to as a younger kid? Other than just being at the club and having that membership there, were you able to get around, or was it a lot of rounds at the same spot at the Derrick?
There was a lot of rounds at the same spot, but I mean, Interclub gave us exposure to not just private clubs, but some of the public courses. And then obviously every year our family would go on vacation out to Kelowna, and we had access to really nice golf courses out there like Gallagher's Canyon, places like that. So anywhere we went as a family, we were always playing different courses for sure.
So how old were you when you played your first golf tournament?
Actually, I was probably about 15 or 16.
Okay.
It was quite a bit older than, because I started golf when I was probably around 6 or 7.
Yeah.
So I didn't really play any tournaments. Like I said, there wasn't a lot of that around. Yeah. But yeah, probably about 15 or 16.
Do you remember what tournament it was?
Club championship.
Okay.
Yeah.
And prior to that, was it just more, did they have a junior club championship at the Derrick?
Yep.
Was it more just kind of building confidence, to get into those situations, or why did it take you to 15?
I just never really, I was playing the game because I loved it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then decided to start playing some of the rest of our group started kind of doing it at that age.
Right.
Some of the older guys that we were kind of looking up to were doing it sooner than that, but we were just out there because we enjoyed it so much.
And was most of your group around the same age? Like I know Taylor had asked about having some older guys to kind of compete against, but was the group that you mainly played with, that 80% that you talked about, was that predominantly guys within a year or two?
Yeah, that was within actually all the same age.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, my brother was like a couple years older and a couple of his friends, but primarily it was all the same age.
And did you guys ever find that there were a few years where, maybe one guy, like in hockey, you see it a lot with the physicality, but same in golf. Like you have those teen years where, puberty starts to kick in, and all of a sudden, a friend of yours that was hitting at the same distance is now 4 inches taller and bombing it, 40 yards by.
And offline.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Did you guys have to ever start, handicapping things a little bit to make it fair, or was it always close enough that you could keep things?
It was always close enough that we just kind of played straight up. And I mean, hey, back in our day, we were playing with balata balls and wooden clubs,
right?
Not like what you guys grew up with, right? It had a premium of hitting the middle.
I played balata though. My first tournament,
you did?
Though, it's balata or Tour Prestige. I was in that era where I played.
Or was it the professional?
I played the Prestige over the professional.
Okay,
softer, spun more. So I remember the balata would sometimes last like a hole.
One bad swing and the ball smiling.
Like if you hit it if you hit a wedge like a little thin back in the day, that ball was.
Well, and you got to remember in our days
done.
too, like there wasn't perimeter weighted golf clubs. Like my first set of clubs were Wilson Staff tour blades.
Right.
At like the age of like 11.
This is what you got.
So it's like, that's what was available.
What you got,
like you learned to hit them or you didn't play.
Wow.
What was the strongest part of your game when you were
Driving.
younger? Not right away, like natural, or just you developed that driving?
Just
accuracy?
right away. I don't know. I've always had good hands, good timing, like good hand-eye coordination. Putting was terrible as a kid, and that got a lot better as I got older.
Did you ever find it difficult to sort of put the time into the areas that you maybe struggled with a little bit more versus kind of, going to the range? I mean, everyone wants to, to some degree do what they're good at. And did you find it was maybe a little bit difficult to put a little bit more time into the putting versus ripping drivers?
Well, I mean, let's be honest. It's fun watching the ball go far.
100%.
So
100%.
But once again, it was that group of guys where 80% of the time when we're like waiting for our tee time, or we've hit a bunch of balls, that we were always on the putting green, chipping and putting and hitting bunker shots. I mean, there wasn't really a big area to do that back in the day. We had a little tiny area for bunkers, and then we had like one putting green, right? So we spent a lot of time on them. So.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I mean, I don't want to jump off golf if you guys have any more questions there, but we can always come back to it. Just curious, these other sports that you played. I mean, it's awesome to see such a list that you're able to participate in. What are some memories of badminton and squash? I mean, racket sports obviously have been proven to be so good in so many ways to developing as an athlete. Hand-eye coordination, cardio, reflexes, balance, all those type of things.
Yeah.
How'd you get into those, and when did you squeeze them in?
Well, being a member of the Derrick, we had badminton and tennis, and didn't have a squash there, but badminton was a big one at the Derrick, and that's probably one of my earliest memories of a coach that was really good with the kids. So he would give us our lessons at the end of the lesson. He would get every kid, and if you could beat him in one rally, you got a milkshake. So like every kid got really jacked for that, to go and try to take him down. His name was Jan. He ended up being the manager of the Derrick at some point, but just a phenomenal badminton player and really, really good coach.
Well, and the strategy that years later you ended up using with some of your students, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
No milkshakes though.
no milkshakes, just
jump
for
in the pond. Baseball, obviously another summer sport.
Yeah.
Was that something that, you were able to weave in with the golf during, you're out of school for a couple of those months, maybe obviously a little bit more time, but, how were you able to kind of balance the baseball with your growing passion for golf?
Well, baseball was kind of short-lived. It was maybe a couple seasons. The one problem with that sport, it was like you needed more of a team to go out and play it. Not just a team, but like two teams.
Right.
If you really wanted to play a proper game. So that's what really appealed with golf, is if your friends couldn't make it, you could still go there and do what you wanted to do.
Right.
So, it was good. We got exposed to it. Like I said, parents always gave us the opportunity, but never were pushed by our parents to do anything. It was totally up to us.
That's a good point, because golf's nice because, you don't need anyone else. You just need yourself, a golf course and golf ball, and you can just
Absolutely.
go.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Yeah.
You don't even need a course, actually. You could just, there's practice areas with the green. There's tons of time you can spend on your own, where, baseball's tough because, unless you have like a pitching machine or, something like that, it's just not, you can't replicate
Can't hit the ball
the
yourself.
same thing.
well, you could. Back when I was like a little kid, I had this plastic bat. You could flip the ball up and hit it
And you got to chase it. Yeah.
with all your friends.
You can throw, I remember when I played baseball, I don't know if you did this too, but I'd be throwing tennis balls against the garage or something.
Yep.
But this only, you can only do this for so long. It kind of, that's a little boring to me at a certain point. It's an hour maybe, but
Yeah.
And how about soccer? Was soccer just kind of, again, when you were younger, just dabbled in a little bit, or was that one that stuck with you a little longer?
That was, probably through junior high. One thing I didn't say in regards to hockey was summer was like big time street hockey for us.
Right.
So weekends, we always had some kind of street hockey game going. Back when it wasn't illegal to be out on the street.
Right.
Go to the tennis. courts.
Car, move the nets, bus, move the nets. But that's how we kept up with hockey in the winter or in the summer, along with the golf as well. So
Any inline? Was inline
later when it came out, because I don't think inline came out till later 80s.
Okay.
I don't know.
Early 90s, late 80s.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just classic street hockey in your shoes, just nice and easy. Get out there with the boys in the neighborhood and
You got
go. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. And then track and field. So track and field was that. I know for a lot of kids now, and even when we were going through the school system, that's usually a pretty heavy. It's heavily connected to the school. Was that something that you did with the school or outside?
Yeah. It was just junior high school.
Nice. So what were your events?
Triple jump, high jump, and I don't know why, but 110 meter hurdles.
Okay.
In the last year, but it was mostly high jump and triple jump.
Lots of
that's
jumping.
great for golf, actually.
Yeah, lots of jumping.
Which you didn't even probably know at the time. You're working your vertical ground forces back then.
No,
Jumping
I
with
had
the
no
leg.
idea what I was doing. I was just trying to get over a bar.
But especially the high jump, because the way you got to pivot and jump backwards,
The Fosbury flop.
stuff like that. It's a lot of golf stuff now. Is we always teach you guys how to jump if you want distance, anyways. Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. That's super interesting.
Was there a sport that you did that you thought, if you could do it all over again, that maybe you could have pursued a little bit more if, golf and even hockey weren't in the picture?
Looking back on it now, I'd maybe do a few things different in golf. There wasn't really a sport that I played that I was like regretful of anything with it. So yeah, not really.
Oh, okay.
We just played sports for fun back then. It wasn't any kind of, we want to become professional athletes. It was just what you did as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I think it's a big part of development just in general.
I mean, we didn't have any of the phones or the social media or the distractions that the kids have nowadays. It was like you had to go and entertain yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No choice.
Yeah.
And curling and rock climbing. So curling, I mean, obviously indoor is something you could do year round. But when was curling kind of something that you squeezed?
Parents were big curlers.
Yeah.
So and
You curl at the club too?
the Derrick had 8 sheets when we were kids. I think they're down to like 4 or 2 now. But so we were exposed to that pretty early. We did a little bit of junior curling, and then in my adult life, we had a few teams from certain years here and there. When I was the head pro at Leduc, we had a team out there that we played just with businesses in Leduc. So it was just more of a fun thing to get out and get some exercise.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then rock climbing.
That was a lot of fun. University, spent a lot of time at the bouldering wall in the Butterdome. Didn't do a lot of outdoor climbing.
Yeah.
Did it a couple times, quite different outdoors than indoors, but it was a really fun time. And it's a good workout
Totally.
too.
Grip
Yeah,
strength,
workout.
really good
100%.
for everything, really.
Yeah. And first exposure to that was university. There wasn't.
Yeah.
That's great. And you mentioned your older brother. Any other siblings in the family?
No, just my older brother.
How was the relationship there? Like in terms of, again, the sports, was he a hockey guy? Were you able to do a lot together? Was the age gap close enough to be competitive on the outdoor rink? And, you mentioned spending some time at the golf course with him.
Oh yeah, no, we were 20 months apart, so we were really close.
Yeah.
So yeah, I basically grew up with his friend group. A lot of my friends that I met in high school, didn't live in our neighborhood growing up. So kind of grew up with his friends at a younger age. And then other than the golf friends that we had at the Derrick. And then, it just went on from there.
Did you find that, spending some time with those older boys, I mean, again, you said 20 months, which is not 5 years, but at the same time, it's also, when you're through some of those development years, a pretty big difference.
Yep.
Did you find that was kind of advantageous to maybe pushing the pace of some of the sports that you were doing with him?
Oh yeah. I mean, if you looked at me and my brother, you'd think I was the older one.
Right.
So, but at the end of the day, yeah, it was like you're always playing something with older kids. So it kind of forced you to just up your game a little bit, or,
Yeah,
it's just how it was.
And was he a hockey guy as well?
Yeah, hockey, golf, not so much of anything else. He did some curling and some badminton, but it was mostly hockey and golf for him. And I think he did it up until 18, hockey as well, and
Nice.
then it was focused on school at that point.
Now, you guys were close enough to potentially be on, I guess it depends on the way the seasons are set up, but did you guys ever play on the same competitive hockey team?
We didn't.
You just missed each other?
Just missed
Yeah.
each. I played with a couple of his friends that kind of landed in that
Yeah.
area. So yeah, that was kind of interesting, but no, we never played on the same team, which would have helped out mom and dad quite a bit.
Yeah,
So-
totally.
with driving.
Well, and then that's kind of a good segue. We want to obviously talk a little bit about your parents as well. And it sounds like they were super supportive, provided you a ton of opportunities and exposure to all these different sports. Specifically with dad, was dad a little bit more involved in the sports than mom, or what was that dynamic?
Oh yeah, dad. I mean, there was a couple of years when we were younger that he was like coach for the hockey team. Didn't really know what he was doing. We didn't know though,
But he was there.
but he was there. Yeah. And they were always at our games, regardless. So yeah, they were always really supportive, never really pushing us to do things. Like, I mean, I've seen a lot of, dynamics between fathers and kids, or parents and kids, that, can be pretty scary in sports,
Yeah.
but
So overall, you found it was kind of a pretty healthy balance of, providing the opportunity, but not forcing you to be places that you didn't necessarily want to be. You didn't have the passion for.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with mom, was she kind of the same or a little bit different role in the athletic?
She was always the one that made sure we were always fed, that we're in good health. Super supportive. She was always taking us everywhere. I mean, she was a teacher. She would come home after work, make dinner for the family, make sure we got to everything that we needed to go do. So, I mean, she had a busy life, right? And it never seemed to faze her.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then, I guess, maybe kind of moving forward a little bit in terms of high school. So high school sounds like an interesting time for, as it is for everybody, but you are getting to the point where you're winding hockey down, maybe leaning into golf a little bit harder. Golf is now something that you can do at the school, albeit it's, like you said, there's not a lot there. It's a couple tournaments a year. But, maybe walk us through those high school years a little bit and how, some of those bigger sort of, changes started to materialize.
Well, for me, hockey just started getting a little bit more serious. Like you started getting some coaches that were not making it fun kind of thing. And I knew I wasn't there was no plans for me to go to junior or go beyond that point. It was just something to do and stay active. And so for me, it was a pretty easy decision to just kind of hang it up. Right. I mean, I remember my last year, I missed a practice before our first game. And in that practice, we were told to wear a suit to the games. And I showed up in a pair of shorts and Jesus sandals and got sat for the first period because I didn't dress up for it.
Right.
And at that point, it's just like, this is going to be my last year of hockey. So I just said, you know what, this is not
worth it.
This is not for me. This is not worth it. I just kind of packed it in, told the coach thanks, went down a division and just had a fun last year.
Yeah. And what grade was that in?
That was grade 12.
Grade 12?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, credit to you to have the awareness that it just wasn't doing what it used to do for you. And then also going out in a respectful manner, right? Saying thank you to the coach. And obviously sometimes you hear stories where it doesn't go quite that smoothly, right? So, with that transition, were you obviously, we briefly touched on it. We'll talk about it more, but the opportunities for golfers in the winter were not what they are now, but was that part of the equation at all at that point? Thinking, well, hey, maybe if I don't have hockey taking up so much time in the winter, there's a few options for me to pursue golf a little bit longer throughout the season?
There really wasn't in town at that point. I remember one of my first jobs was a place called Indoor Golf World.
Okay.
On the south side. And they had very, very basic simulators at the time.
Yeah.
And it was neat because it was new, but it wasn't something that we were running to do and to work on our games, or there wasn't anything around like there is today.
Golf Dome wasn't around yet?
Golf Dome was around, but I mean, did you ever hit there?
Yeah.
Was it only 100 yards long?
Well, it's not that it was that long. It was just the sound in there, it got really annoying.
Well, you really go in
there, pressurized dome.
Yeah.
Ears would pop when you're going through the turnstile door to get in there.
And it didn't get kept up properly, and the balls were terrible. And so, I mean, it was fun to go do in the winter when you kind of missed it a bit, but it was always just waiting for the snow to melt.
Any more opportunity to even get to a place like Kelowna or get down south without, hockey taking up long weekends and stuff like that? Do you think you got a couple more trips out of town to hit a few balls, break the winter up a little bit?
There really wasn't. Not for us as kids. Mom and dad were both working, so all vacations were taken in the summer when we were off school.
Right.
I mean, back then you just didn't pull your kid out of school to go do stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So we went to school 5 days a week. I know that's kind of weird now.
Yeah.
No fall break or anything. Yeah.
And I guess maybe before we continue forward, just you had mentioned the one badminton coach. Any other coaches through your youth sports years that jumped out as being really positive influences?
I mean, all the assistants that we were exposed to at the Derrick were fantastic.
Yeah.
For the golf side of things. There's a couple teachers with sports that we played through junior high and high school that had a pretty good influence on us, or on me at least. And I would say there was more positive influences than negative for me.
Yeah.
Because if I had any kind of negative influence, it just was something that I would just say, okay, enough, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, it made no difference to me whether I played or didn't play. It was just totally up to me at that point.
Yeah.
So, but as far as remembering them, Jan is the one that really stood out for badminton. That's a tough. You got to remember, I'm pretty old. It's hard to remember that far back.
Asking to go way back.
Yeah.
You're asking me to go way. I can barely remember that.
Well, what about the coach that, I mean, again, don't have to name names.
Yeah.
The coach that didn't make it fun in hockey, and other than having to wear a suit to games, what sort of things didn't make it fun for you?
Well, there was another coach. I didn't even know this. My mom actually told me this about a week ago when I said I was coming on the podcast.
Yeah.
That when I was 18, a coach, a AA coach, called and said, "Didn't see your son at our tryouts." And she was like, "Well, I don't think I think he's hanging up the skates." And he's like, "Well, is there any reason why?" And I guess my mom said, "He's a real pussycat." and the coach said, "Well, we can change that." And that was a big thing for me. Like, I just didn't need that type of influence on me. Right.
Yeah.
Because I knew I wasn't going any further. Like, that's fine for some kids,
Right.
but it just wasn't my cup of tea.
Yeah.
So,
And those teachers is a really good point as well. Like, I mean, you're spending so much time with teachers, so I'm glad that you mentioned them as well. Maybe just to throw them in a basket. So you've got your badminton coach, a few other coaches that kind of came to mind, and those teachers. What are some of the kind of common themes amongst that group that brought them back to your mind in such a positive way? What are some of the things that they did that stood out?
they treated everyone as an individual because everyone developed in their own way. Right. So, I mean, there's a lot of the good teachers that I had knew how to bring the best out of you. And it's not necessarily doing the same thing for every kid. Right. And you could see that they did different things for different kids. So, I mean, that was something that really kind of stuck with me. You can't really put everyone in the same mold.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
and it sounds like that's something you've kind of, taken with you as well. Like, I mean, just the example of obviously the games and the badminton coach haven't done that, but then, being able to look at students as unique individuals versus just putting everybody into a basket.
Well, and what Maddie and I do nowadays, I mean, that's something that it's kind of like second nature. I don't know if you'd agree.
There's different learning. Yeah, some people
Everyone's different.
want, some people are visual, some people are audio, some people like I like to move people, but some people don't need to be moved, but some people need to be moved, and
it's different for everyone.
You got to figure it out. Yeah. Usually within the first hour you ever meet someone, or they're not quite coming back, but you need to figure it out pretty quick.
And sometimes you got to use different verbiage for different people.
Yeah,
because certain things resonate with certain people.
Right.
And certain things don't. So that's kind of, I think, the challenge that we have as golf coaches. Everyone is so different.
Different abilities, different learning styles, skill sets.
Yep.
It's
absolutely
different. Like, it's not. Actually, I remember when I first started teaching, it was just like, this is how I fix a cut. This is how I fix whatever. But then you see it live and you're like, what is this? And then you're trying to explain something that person is not understanding. Then it's like, you got to learn pretty quick though how to
say it a different way.
Yeah, shift. And that's kind of like, what you need to be as a coach is how can you adjust the message so that everyone gets it.
And again, you wouldn't believe what Maddie and I have been exposed to.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
You see a little bit of everything for sure.
Oh yeah. We've seen it all. So.
And not to dwell on the negative, but kind of the same question in reverse. Some of those coaches that you think back on that maybe weren't doing things as gracefully, for lack of a better word. What are some of the things that you that stand out there in terms of things that they could have maybe done a little bit differently? Obviously, you want to try to learn from those, and that's why we asked the question.
Well, I mean, I think it's the coaches that were like win at all costs
Right.
kind of coaches, right? And that's all fine and dandy, but I mean, at the end of the day, that's not the most important thing,
Right.
right? Especially in the development of juniors,
Right.
right? That can have a very big negative impact on them.
Any sport in particular out of the ones that you played where that maybe was a little bit more prominent than others? Yeah.
Yeah, it was hockey.
Yeah.
Like Sean, do you find that you've coached like, some high level teams like in tournaments and whatnot, do you find sometimes like, like the winning takes precedence over the development stage at times at a certain age, that it's a little younger than you might think is necessary?
Yeah, I think for sure. I think, part of the challenge there is a team sport again versus an individual scenario, right? Like there is an element of where you have to try to do what's best for the team, and that's not always lined up with what's best for the individuals. Not saying it's right, not trying to make an excuse for it, but it does make it complicated at times because, a team that's losing every game is going to not have fun. There's going to be a lot of other things that start going south. But at the same time, the overcompensation of saying, okay, well, we're going to only play our first line and our top D pair and our starting goalie, and the rest of the group's going to ride the pine all year, especially when you're talking about younger kids. Like, is that trade-off worth it overall? If 75, 85% of the team is not feeling good about themselves and not developing and losing confidence, to me, that's where it starts to cross over. And
There's got to be a balance there.
There's got to be a balance, and it is tricky. Not saying it can't be done. I think it's complicated, much in the same way that it's complicated. You get a 10-year-old that you guys have to coach who's just starting, and then you got an 18-year-old who's looking to go to college. Those are two very different situations that require different approaches. Yeah. So. I think it's a challenge, but at the same time, it's it's just one of those things that you have to go through it to try to be better at it in the future, right?
Well, and in our sport too, to be fair, like you're going to lose more than you're going to win.
Right.
It's just
a number game.
It's just a numbers game. Exactly.
It's not like 50, like you play a hockey game. Theoretically, like the odds aren't 50-50, but there's only two options.
You win or you lose.
In golf, it's
you lose.
Even the best player loses all the time.
So no, that's a really interesting point. Like you get a field of 100 kids or 125.
You have one
winner. And I've played some golf tournaments. I've never really thought about it that way. But like, how do you stay positive in that? Because it isn't black and white. Like in hockey, you get a losing team and a winning team, or maybe you have ties in some regular season games. But like, if you come in second, obviously, in a lot of ways, that isn't a loss. So how, like,
it's the first loser,
right? But how do you guys Lindsey, how do you like work through that? Because if you're only winning less than 1% of the time, obviously that's super discouraging.
Well, I mean it is, but when you look at the best player that ever played the game, in Tiger Woods, I mean, what was his win percentage?
It got watered down by the end, but it was I want to say it was close to
in his 20s
or something.
Yeah, like in his heyday, it was like 20-25%, somewhere in there. Right. And like, so when you look at that as from a team aspect, that's terrible.
A winning percentage of 250 is not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's last place in most team sports. Mm-hmm. So I guess in golf, you're always kind of encouraging the person you're never going to have every part of your game firing at like the best. So like having a top 5, having a top 10, if you played the whole season and you won once but you're in the top 15 every event, I mean, you had a hell of a good year.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So
I think you got to compare more. It's more comparing to your own ability. Like your improvement is kind of the way I think it has to be looked at.
100%.
The field's always relative. Mm-hmm. Like the field will change based on where you're playing and whatnot, but you can check your own development. If you're improving, that's the only real thing that matters. Like if you go play in the best field and you shoot your best score, but you finish like, call it 20th, it doesn't even matter. You improved.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
No, and in our sport too, our field of play is constantly changing. Whereas like for hockey, the rink is the same.
Right.
Yeah. Same dimensions. Yeah.
Dimensions.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes they're
different. We had
so much
we had some
nowadays.
crazy ones back in our day.
Did you have goal setting when you were maybe more so in your teens and playing high school tournaments, did you have like, okay, I want to finish top 5, I want to finish top 10, or what Maddie was saying, if I go out and shoot my best round, then great, and if it means I finish in 30th, then so be it.
You're always looking for a personal best, because if you do your personal best and someone beats you, then someone beat you. That doesn't mean you lost by any means. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I was always setting kind of goals, because if you're playing the Alberta Junior, you might want to make the Wellington Cup team, or no, that's Alberta Amateur. But there's always like, an Alberta team to go play in a national. So there was certain things that you were trying to set goals for, and just to play your best as much as you can. It's a very tough thing to do in our sport.
Difference with golf and hockey is like in golf, it's measurable. Like your best score, even if it doesn't win, it's measurable that you can go back to it later. If you play a really good hockey team and you play your best and you still lose, it's just, there's no metric to compare it at all.
Yeah. There's no strokes gained in hockey.
Yeah, I guess now there's a little bit more data out there to measure. I mean, you've always had assists and goals and plus minus, but I mean, especially for defensemen, sometimes that's not very informative looking back on it and trying to contrast it. But I mean, now you have a little bit, even with the minor hockey levels, you've got, a deeper level of analytics that you can have possession time, battles won, some of that stuff. So it is getting a little bit better, but yeah, I totally hear your point.
It is also team reliant too. Like
100%,
if you have a selfish teammate or teammates aren't as skilled, or there's so many variables, and the other team as well, which I guess can be accounted for in those stats. But like with golf, you're really not playing against the like even in match play, like you are playing against someone, but you're really still playing against the golf course.
Right. You're playing against yourself.
Like you got to take care of your own stuff before you even worry about like what this other person's doing.
Right. For sure. You mentioned the goal setting, and Taylor was asking the question about that, just to kind of dig into that a little deeper. Some of those sort of intangibles, where were you influenced to think that way? Was some of that coming from dad? Was it coming from some of the older players at the Derrick and the pros? Like I know obviously for a lot of young athletes, some of those things are very foreign. And when did some of those more intangible skills start to kind of come to the forefront for you?
Probably coming more from our peer group and the kids that we looked up to, the older kids that we looked up to at the Derrick. Yeah. Just seeing how they approach a tournament, see what kind of skill sets that they had and what was better that they did than what you did at the time, and why are they a better player than you? Yeah. And then trying to like go and fix it. Right. But you had to be honest with yourself too at that point.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, the more we talk about it, like that seems to be a really common thread for you, is having that exposure to that group and those older players at the Derrick. And I think about hockey, like outdoor rink is a spot where you can have that because there's no age limit.
You learn a lot out there.
Totally. You can show up and there's people 5 years older than you and way more advanced, and at the same time you can have a group that's way weaker, and you got to learn how to be a good leader and be accepting of that. So it's just very healthy to be in that type of varied environment. But with golf, like it's awesome that you kind of have a little bit more freedom to expose yourself to some of those situations. Like when you think of hockey and just being on your team, it's guys within a year, and that repeats itself every year. Best case scenario, you would be a rookie one year and then a veteran the next, but you never really have a ton of exposure to people outside of that 1 year age gap, above or below.
Well, at the outdoor rinks, back in my day, I remember there was this one adult that would come out and play Shinny, and like he scared me.
You really?
Oh yeah, like this guy was aggressive, right? And like he would never hurt you, but like he played hard.
It was his Stanley Cup.
Oh yeah. So like when he was there, you're like, oh man, I hope he's on my team.
And he'd get right in the games, and
he'd get right in the games, and then when you're playing against him, man, you have to learn how to deal with that. Right. So I mean, you could learn a lot out on the outdoor rinks as well.
Totally.
Without the coaches.
Yeah.
So.
And just kind of going back to that, the coaches that, maybe you thought could have done things a little differently. You obviously mentioned the winning at all costs. Any other themes amongst that group of coaches in terms of?
I just find good coaches can bring out the best of each individual if they kind of truly understand each individual, and each individual is different. Right. Some are going to require a little bit more praise. Some are going to not require that. Some need a little bit more attention. I know when we do when I do like group clinics, there's always students that you're spending more time with, and the ones that you're not spending more time with, like you're always making sure that they're taken care of, that they're doing it and they're doing it right. So you don't really need to, you just go over there and give them a little encouragement and hey, you're doing it properly. But then you're like stuck with the people that you got to really work with. So as a coach, you got to balance that, I think, and know that everyone's an individual and you got to learn to deal with them individually.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think we've hit that segment pretty good. I don't know if you guys have any more
one more
questions.
thing, I guess. When you're growing up, because we've talked about this a little bit before, but were there any like professional athletes you looked up to, you know, in hockey or golf? Did you watch hockey on TV, golf on TV?
Oh yeah, growing up, I mean, we were like devout Oiler fans.
I guess you were
back in the Gretzky
perfect
days, like,
age, probably.
Like we had a phenom to watch, and it's amazing that we have a second one in my lifetime.
Yeah,
because there was a time where I didn't watch the Oilers, like in the 90s. Just didn't even care about it, right? And now in the McDavid years, it's just so fun to watch another person dominate like Wayne did back in the day.
Totally.
Right? So like as a kid, we definitely looked up to him. And on golf, we'd always watch the Masters. You know, Dad always had those big tournaments on, and you're always watching like Jack. And I mean, I remember Jack in '86. It was the craziest thing to see winning the Masters at age 46. It was unheard of. So, you know, we had those kind of people to look up to.
Did you ever try to like swing like them, or try to like do something like take part of their game or attitude, how they walk?
Not really.
No.
You
just wanted to you always just wanted to do your own thing.
We did our own thing. Like we, like I said, that peer group really kind of kept an eye on each other, really. And just, that's where we learned it. You know, I find kids nowadays with all the technology, you can get bunged up in the numbers of the launch monitors and the video and trying to make your swing look pretty. And you got to at some point stop playing golf swing and start learning how to play the game. Right. So there's a point where you got to just put all that stuff aside and learn to go play.
for sure. Did you golf with your parents quite a bit over the years? Yeah. How did you find that? Was that sort of, you know, a way that you were able to grow and sort of, you know, model your future self? After
they weren't great. I mean, I was beating Dad when I was 12 or 13. So and in all fairness, he didn't start golfing until like his mid 20s. Right. I mean, he was raising a family. Right. So, but we would go out with them. They'd give us a club. We'd hit it. And then it just eventually grew into, you know, doing it on our own.
Any competitions with Dad while you guys were in those years where, you know, it was sort of 50-50 who could win and who could lose?
It was young at that point. Later on in life, I would just take his left-handed clubs and play him straight up because I hated giving him all the strokes. And then those were some fun times. But that was he wasn't really someone that was pushing us skill-wise, but just gave us the opportunity.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Any more there, boys, before we kind of go to the next segment?
Let's move on.
Okay, right on. So yeah, I guess, you know, for us, really the U Sports years are high school down. I mean, for some hockey players that go to junior a little bit earlier, we kind of transition that a little bit sooner. But, you know, we feel like we've definitely got a really good grasp of your journey up until grade 12. And then obviously grade 12 you'd mentioned is a year where hockey was taken out of the equation. I guess maybe the first question getting into post high school, any regrets? Did you miss hockey? Was it something that you wish you maybe would have stuck with a little bit longer, or no?
No, not really. I mean, in my mid 20s, I had a couple of friends, believe it or not, in Canada that like didn't even know who the ref was in hockey.
Right.
So we ended up like playing on an Edmonton men's league division, like one of the worst divisions, just to get them exposed to the game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was fun to kind of get back into it a little bit in a little bit more of a formal kind of setting, but it was mostly at that point just going out to the outdoor rinks if you really wanted to be exposed to it. Honestly, I haven't even skated in a lot of years now, just because our winters, like the rinks are terrible.
Yeah. It's a lot harder to get outdoor ice than it used to be, for sure. So a couple years off completely from hockey before you kind of dabbled in it again.
Yeah.
And with golf, how did things kind of progress there? I mean, jumping ahead a little bit, we want to hear the progression, but how did the passion and the interest in teaching, how did you get there?
Well, I mean, I always kept playing, and through university, just made a U-turn and got into the Grant MacEwan golf program and decided I was going to try to get my pro card and just decided that that's kind of the world I wanted to live in.
Like, what influenced you to go that direction?
Just the love of the game, really.
Like, you just wanted to be around the course a lot still?
Yeah.
Was there a pro at the time that kind of maybe triggered you to want to go that path, or was...
Well, I mean, DMAC, Darryl McDonald. Yeah, for sure. I mean, for our group growing up, he was...
I think for a lot of generations,
yeah, he was pretty Showtime.
Now, did you still see him quite a bit at the Derrick? Or I know he obviously went to Mill Woods at some point, right? But were you still seeing him? Was he a pretty big influence in your life still during these years?
When he was at the Derrick, yeah, for sure. Because we saw like he was an awesome player back in those days, right? Yeah. Still is. So yeah, it just that was kind of something that always appealed to me. Just being around the club, I grew up with it, so figured why not make this a career?
Did you have jobs in the industry at that time? Like, were you working at a course anywhere?
No, I wasn't. Actually, we had a neighbor that was a district manager of Safeway, so we had pretty good jobs as kids growing up.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that kept us busy doing that until we got into the pro card.
What'd you originally enroll in for post secondary?
Just science degree,
and then went to golf.
Yeah.
Wow.
And how does that work exactly? I know lots of people in the area have taken it, and it sets you up to be a professional in the industry. But I'm genuinely curious myself. I think a lot of the listeners would be too. How does that work with the schooling?
It was basically a 2-year business degree.
Okay.
And then the third year was most of the golf classes.
Yeah.
Just managing a golf course, things like that. And then the requirements of the PGA back in our day was we had a playability exam that you had to pass. And then as far as like training for like learning how to teach and things like that, there wasn't a lot of information back then. It's gotten a lot better. But yeah, it was pretty, it was.
Did you like it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot of fun for sure. Mm-hmm. But it was just, the goal was just to get into a position to be a PGA professional around town.
Right.
And they set you up right away after school. Like, some schools and programs, you get an internship or, they facilitate employment right after graduation. Was it pretty easy to find a job right away?
It was kind of during,
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Like throughout. So I know I started out at Leduc, under Dean Heck, when I was going through the school. Mm-hmm. And then once you passed your playability exam, then you could kind of start getting into the teaching side of stuff and expanding that quite a bit.
Now, was the playability exam through was it a component of the Grant MacEwan golf program, or is that part of the
PGA of Alberta?
Okay. Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that still the same as it used to be? I know I've heard different stories about you got to break 80 or something now.
It's quite a bit different. Yeah. So back in our day, they had an A and a B card. And I think it was 76 for your A and 78 for your B. And it was a 2-day thing. Now it's like a 1-day thing.
Right.
And I think it's, what is it? Break 80? I think it depends.
It's almost like +8 from the rating or something.
Yeah.
So it kind of could vary. It
depends on the course. Right.
Like I find back then, or even when I started, it was still 2 days. I don't remember what the score was because I got an exemption for mine, but yeah, like you had to prove it over like a couple days, whereas now it's like it's almost it's too easy.
It is. I mean, back in our day, we had 110 people. We did it at Wolf Creek on the north and the south nine, or sorry, the west and the south, and I think 9 of us got our A cards.
Wow.
And maybe a handful got their Bs.
And I want to say back then it was probably once a year or twice a year back then?
Once a year.
It was once a year. So now there's like multiple ones. So back then you had to wait the entire year. You probably couldn't play any tournaments or anything.
Couldn't teach.
Couldn't do anything really. You had to wait for that one opportunity and you had to be on that week.
Yeah,
you had to. There was no other option, or you got to wait another year So, like,
a
I'm
big
sure
deal.
there's a lot of people that I've heard, like, it took years.
Well, and back in our day too, 7 times I think, and you weren't allowed to do it again.
Oh, wow.
Because we had I won't say his name, but we had a guy at the Derrick, an assistant, who ended up going to Millwoods and working for Daryl. But if you looked at this guy's swing on the range, you'd think this guy was like tour.
Yeah.
He was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Just couldn't make the score.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's
Which was really unfortunate because he would have been a fantastic pro.
right.
Right.
Take
For
us
what
through
we-
your day. Do you remember? You remember you're one of the 9 to get your card. Do you remember a lot about that day?
Yeah, actually, I was thinking to myself, like, it can't be this easy. I mean, I shot 70, 71, par 70 out there. So I had lots of room. I played a lot.
So you
back
never
then.
felt the heat whatsoever.
I never felt the heat. There was one kid in our group that I literally, if he went triple, double, he would have got his card and he missed it. And it was like heart wrenching to watch that.
Oh yeah.
Just see the train wreck unfold. Right. But,
And he was in your group.
he was in our group. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Wow. And Wolf Creek can be a challenging course. I haven't played there since I was a junior, but it's not necessarily an easy course.
It's not an easy course, but I mean, it's right in front of you.
Right.
I mean, you don't necessarily need to hit a lot of drivers out there. And the greens, if you can't read the greens there, you can't read greens because it's super obvious.
Yeah.
Right. So
I think it's the wind there that
yeah, if
can
the conditions
make
were
or break
bad,
it,
that's when it got tough. And I remember we had pretty benign conditions.
So you had mentioned your first tournament wasn't really until age 15 or so.
Yeah.
You're playing your playability exam probably in your early 20s, I'm assuming. You have a few years in there where, I mean, I guess the first question is how many tournaments did you kind of ramp up to during the tail end of your junior career? Because, I mean, it sounds like you were quite confident by the time this playability exam came around. And we've heard a few unfortunate stories of people folding under that pressure. So how did you get to that point where, you had quite a bit of confidence going into a very high pressure,
Literally
high-stakes
just
situation?
playing all the time. I
Yeah.
mean, growing up at the Derrick, there was probably a few years there between the ages of 15 and 18 where I was close to 200 rounds in a year.
Yeah.
Like I was playing 36, sometimes 54 a day, just living at the golf course, right? And just sheer repetitiveness
Yeah.
is really what it boiled down to.
And you guys, I mean, you play, you mentioned the games, but, and Matt has talked about this a lot too. It's kind of a cool thing about golf. I mean, obviously if you're putting your house on the line, there's a balance there, but you can
Pink slip.
I never had a house back then.
Yeah. You can make even just a Saturday morning round a fairly high pressure situation by, putting a little bit of money or whatever.
it doesn't have to be money. It could be jumping in a lake, or
Yeah.
it could be
A
push-ups.
little bit of dad's money.
Yeah.
So was that something that, you 200 rounds a year, obviously is going to help just be confident with the muscle memory, the reps, everything.
Yeah.
But were a lot of those rounds also, there's something on the line?
Oh yeah. We would always be playing for something.
Yeah.
For sure. And we'd sometimes do it in a team format, whereas a couple of us against, playing the high-low matches. So it was very rarely just going out and playing by ourselves, where nothing was on the line, but we did that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like you're calm under pressure. Like a lot of the underlying stories.
You think so?
Well, but,
Duck on water.
you got the little competitions going, but it seemed that like it didn't get to you. You mentioned the guy imploding, not to get his card, where it just seemed like it was just another day of golf for you.
Well, I'll tell you that changes with age. Let me tell you.
Okay, in your 20s.
Yeah. In the 20s, like no fear, right?
Yeah.
Just had no fear of it at all. So, just confidence is definitely a massive, massive thing in our game.
Yeah.
If you don't think you can do it, you're not gonna.
Well, and to stay on that a little bit, like, do you think, getting older, probably for a multitude of reasons, things change, but at the same time, like I'm sure you weren't able to keep up that pace of 200 rounds.
Oh,
you started working that number probably really had to go down. And
It did.
Do you think that was a big factor with, the confidence maybe deteriorating a little bit?
Well, early in the PGA, like I played all the tournaments I possibly could. So that kept the game sharp. But you get to different jobs and different responsibilities. And that ends up, you're not playing as much, you're not practicing as much. I mean, now as a teacher, I very rarely play.
Right.
Like I play more in the off season, or I play more virtual golf nowadays. Right. and that's just the way it is. But it's something that I really, really enjoy doing. So,
Right. And so you said the playability exam, you kind of did it while you're still wrapping up the Grant MacEwan program. Is that correct? It was
Yeah.
about the same time.
yeah.
So you come out of there, you got the box checked, you've passed the playability exam, you graduate, you move on from Grant MacEwan, and I think Leduc is where you said you started.
Yeah.
How were the first few days, months, years getting into that line of work?
Interesting,
Yeah.
to say the least.
Especially back then too.
Yeah.
Things have changed quite a bit.
Things have changed quite a bit. I mean, I always tried to, I tried working with video early when it wasn't really a thing. You know, you had the big camcorder, VCR
Tripod.
tapes.
Were you like using the
stuff like
marker
that.
on the TV kind of thing?
Yeah, like, and you know, picture was terrible. And like even the first year of teaching was just, I look back at that and just be like, wow, I can't believe that. You know, the very first lesson I ever had, 2 girls in high heels came.
Oh, boy.
And I'm just like, this can't be how it is. Right. And so it was pretty interesting.
Did you start teaching right out of the gate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. And then I kind of left it when I got the head pro job at Leduc. I kind of left the teaching side of things quite a bit. And then after that, I went over to the country club under Greg and really got the teaching back up and going again.
Right.
So
Now, was that more just obviously, again, talking to Matt about some of the stuff you take on, all those extra responsibilities as a head pro?
yeah.
Was a big part of it just not having the time to still teach? Did you feel like you needed a break for other reasons?
Well,
Or
back then, like I owned my shop at that point, which
Yeah.
is not common for head pros nowadays. So there's a little bit of an aspect of that as well. And then, you know, dealing with membership, it was a semi-private club. So you were dealing with kind of 2 clubs within a club as far as that's concerned.
right.
And then I had to, have my own staff there. And so it was a lot to deal with. And that's when the game, you're not playing as much, not focused on teaching as much.
It becomes
Just 'cause-
business.
Yeah. You don't have the time.
Right.
Right.
And those first few years when you started at Leduc, I mean, again, this might have been different back when you were in those years, but as far as I understand it, a lot of clubs will have the head pro on a full year salary, maybe an assistant or 2. The young guys typically are not hired or retained during the winter.
Yeah.
What were your off seasons like back
Well,
then?
and that was the nice thing of having that neighbor that got us jobs at Safeway and
Right.
got us good jobs. So I was able to kind of leave that job and then come back with the full seniority that I had and have full hours for the winter. So
Nice.
like for me, it was a pretty easy thing,
Nice.
but I know it wasn't easy for a lot of guys
Right.
because like it's not easy to get hired for 3 or 4 rounds. right?
Totally. Was there any, did you ever dabble in going down south and trying to keep golf going at all?
I never did. I never did the caddying thing.
Yeah.
I know a lot of guys did, and there's a lot of really funny stories.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been a really good experience to do that. But because of the job that I had in the winter, there was really no need for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you did get to that head pro position, did you like that change where you could just, kind of be under salary for the whole year, or did you kind of miss because I mean, if you go back all the way to your U Sports years, like you had that kind of balance throughout your life of one focus in the winter, one focus in the summer. Did you feel it was kind of weird to all of a sudden just have the same thing for the whole year for the first time?
Well, yeah, but I mean, in the winter, really, you weren't doing a lot for the club at that point because the club basically shut down back in those days. They would open up for a few things, but it had really nothing to do with me as a head pro, even though they had me on a retainer. So it was kind of like just having some time off.
Yeah, which is always nice.
And I was kind of double dipping because then I would go back to Safeway at that point.
Right.
Right.
And was there initial connection to Leduc, like in terms? Because again, to Taylor's question earlier, like it sounds like golf is certainly gaining in popularity with a lot of students, and I would imagine forecasting 10 years out, there's going to be maybe a few more kids that have kind of gone through this COVID wave that are wanting to stay in the game and after high school and wanting to be golf professionals. So again, I don't have a crystal ball, but I feel like it might get a little more challenging to find a spot. even back then, like how, you hear stories of guys who want to get these jobs, but they can't. Was there certain things and certain connections that were able to get that opportunity for you?
It was through Interclub, really.
Oh, wow.
Got to know Blair Butter out at Leduc,
Okay.
and a couple other players that were out there as juniors that we played against quite a bit. And I think I got the kind of inline scoop from Blair that they were looking for someone out there. And at that point I had my own car, didn't really think it was too much of a drive to get out there,
Right.
living on the south side. So, that's kind of what we were looking at. Because I think at the time they didn't allow members to work at the club. So, obviously you're thinking of going to the Derrick, but that never actually really ever was an option. I don't think so.
Right. Do you think that, your ability to be an elite player in Interclub helped? Like, I mean, you obviously were a good player. Do you think that kind of opened their eyes a little bit? And you're a good guy too. People like to be around you, but the second question would be, do you think that your ability to play golf really kind of helped open those doors for you?
You know what? I don't think so. The first head pro I worked under, that was like super low on his list. I don't think he really cared how good of a player you were.
Right.
So, I mean, it's always fun for members to go out and play with the pros. And I mean, there was a point in my life where I felt like if I didn't have a good round in front of members, like you're almost embarrassed.
Right.
But I learned later on that it really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they're not expecting you to go shoot 65 every day.
Right.
So
Sometimes.
that's just unrealistic.
Sometimes.
Yeah. You're going to do it the odd time. And
It's got to be in there.
yeah.
I think it's more so how you conduct yourself and interact with the group.
Yeah.
So like even if someone's a really good player, like it always helps if they conduct themselves in a respectful manner, because then that's what kind of resonates the most with people is how did they get treated by you, and like if you played poorly, like how did you react?
Yeah. Like were you throwing clubs?
Yeah, or just kind of going off
Yeah.
just in the middle of nowhere to separate yourself from the group or something, right? So I think that's a big key component that actually, like, especially if you want to turn pro, like touring professional, you have to do this every single week. Every week you got to play with some random foursome
Pro-am.
and you got to spend 2 hours with two different groups.
Right. Yeah. This is maybe jumping ahead a bit, but for both of you guys, like we talked about the playability exam, and this is something, on the hockey side that's talked about at times as well. The full end of the spectrum is you have Ken Hitchcock, who was not a good hockey player, but is just an incredible hockey mind and ended up being a great coach and teacher. And then you have Wayne Gretzky, the best player to ever play, who struggled to be a coach. Where do you guys find sort of that line? Because I mean, again, you look at like a playability exam and you're like, well, if someone's going to teach, they should be able to play to a certain degree. But at the same time, just again, going back to the hockey example, sometimes you have those guys that know the game really well, but just for whatever reason, we're never able to really play at a high level. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I'll start. There was a pro when I was a kid at Masters Golf School downtown. I don't know if you remember that place.
No.
His name was Alec Alnick, one of the first pros in Edmonton. And this guy could sit literally on a chair, watch you hit balls into a net 3 feet away from you, tell you exactly what you're doing wrong. I mean, the guy was a phenomenal teacher.
Right.
Could he play? I have no idea.
Right.
I think he was decent, but do you think, I don't think you have to be a high level player to be a good coach. I mean, I think a lot of high level players don't understand the golf swing as much as you think they would.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think they just have a lot of natural talent.
Right.
So at the end of the day, I don't think that's a
Deal breaker.
yeah.
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 I don't think they're necessarily like you don't have to be a professional to coach someone. Like especially nowadays, there's so many people that are very high in the coaching world that aren't PGA members.
100%.
I don't necessarily think it's like super important, but I think to be a PGA professional, that yes, the bar should be high, but it doesn't necessarily mean you can't still coach. Certain clubs may not want you to be there, but especially now with the internet, and I mean, look at like Decade Golf, right? Scott's he's a professional, but he's not like a PGA professional, but he's helping so many players with their games right now. Like there's so many guys like this now. Like who else have I?
Well, there's a lot of big names in the States that aren't PGA of America.
Not PGA of America. Like I've worked with Gabe Herchstad before, like I think twice on tour. I'm pretty sure he's not like a PGA of America professional, but he's still like, coaching on tour. And
Hank Haney isn't.
Yeah. Right. So I don't necessarily think it's, you don't need to be. It definitely helps if you're like starting like ground floor, but
gives you some initial credit to open the. I mean, again, you see that in the hockey side, right? Like guys that have NHL experience and all of a sudden become a coach overnight, they typically are going to have some people give them a try, just simply because of that resume. Yeah. But at the same time, like eventually, you know, if you're not actually a good coach, it only lasts so long. So, yeah, I totally agree. There's some correlation there, but they're not.
Because I know even for me, like
exclusive all the time.
In coaching, there's times where like I catch myself way more now, but like I have feels, but like I can't give someone my feel because I don't know what they're feeling. Right. So a lot of like tour players, like they know their game, right? Because there's no real reason for them to want to explore anything else, right? Like it's such a hard sport. Like for you to worry about a different type of pattern or something would just be like a waste of time. Really. Right. Whereas when you're coaching, it's like you want to understand everything, but as a player, you don't necessarily want to understand everything.
Right. Nor do you need to understand.
No, it's just like more information that you don't need.
Yeah. Sometimes it's detrimental, right? Like I think of my experience with hockey, but then my brother is still playing and contrasting it with me being a coach now for the last 12 years. And like as a player, and especially in a team sport, in a lot of ways, you're trying to think a little less. Yeah. You want to be in a position to do what you're told, because you have to listen to your coach and not be overanalyzing everything and always looking bigger picture and trying to look 360 around everything. It's very advantageous to just be told something and go and execute it. And that's very different to the way a coach needs to think, in my opinion, right? A coach needs to be thinking about, like you said, does this person need to be approached this way? Do they need to be approached this way? What are their deficiencies? What are the things that they're excelling in? There's a lot more thinking involved. And sometimes like you need to think and understand the game, but if you're over analyzing things as a player, like it's often problematic.
Well, that's where some of the technology nowadays that it can be detrimental. Right. You know, if you're focused on trying to get a certain number in your golf swing with a launch monitor, that's not necessarily the right path.
Right.
Do you guys feel golf is maybe the one sport where there's so much information overload and these little knickknacks and gadgets and videos?
Yeah, so funny story.
I mean, the sky's the limit.
I was teaching a doctor, I think it was last year. So he's going on with all these YouTube videos. And like, there's a lot of great information there, but the thing is, it's like, you got to know what's
you don't understand,
right? Yeah. So he's going on with these different ones, but there's like, you know, he's talking like different patterns, different releases on different videos. And I'm like, now you're all over the map. Mm-hmm. So I look at him like, your patients ever come in like talking about WebMD all the time? He's like, oh, I hate that. It's so dumb. Like they don't, I'm like, I don't say anything.
Do you see the correlation?
Yeah. I didn't have to say anything. And then like 5 seconds later, just like, oh,
the light goes on, right?
It clicked though. He got the analogy.
He got it pretty quick. I mean, he just thought about it for a second. Like, like I'm doing this to myself now.
Right.
There's so much stuff out there.
Right.
Well, you know, the funny thing with our sport too is when we're kids growing up, we literally have a coach for everything we do.
Right.
Okay. In school, whatever it may be. But then people taking up golf as an adult, they're, for some reason, whether it's arrogance or just they feel, I can figure this out on my own, because like we have this new generation of like YouTubers that think that I can just go find the information and apply it.
Right.
And if you don't understand the information, like Matt's saying, it's, you're just going to make it worse.
Right.
Right. So it's always good to have another set of eyes on you.
So do you find that YouTube, like in terms of Taylor's question and the technology, do you find YouTube to be maybe the most challenging versus the TrackMans, or how do you compare kind of the influence of those two?
Getting students to be looking at other information and not knowing what they're looking at is really tough sometimes when you have somebody that you're coaching, because you don't know what they're doing in their time away from you.
Right. Scrolling through TikTok or Instagram, there's all these little golf
and
tips.
Trying to apply everything, and not everything is going to work with everybody. Right. I mean, it's a difficult thing. I kind of just tell my students, like, look, if you want to look at a couple guys, here's a couple of really good guys you might want to look at. It's going to fall in line with kind of what we're doing.
Right.
And, you know, if you need a little bit of extra information, here's where you should go.
Just narrow the focus a little bit.
Exactly.
Right. Take some of the noise out. Right.
Yeah.
Now, when you're picking examples for students, there's obviously, you're probably looking at players that you know are high quality players and do a lot of things right on themselves. Is there also an element of trying to match the student with the player based off of where the student's current swing is? Like, so if it's someone who takes it outside, drops it inside, are you trying to match them up with the only guy I can think of is Jim Furyk right now, but
I don't try to match people up with pros. I mean, I'm looking at different positions throughout the swing,
Right.
and everybody gets there in different ways based on their own abilities.
right.
For me, it's more kind of, if they want to look at a little bit more information, just finding some other coaches online that they might want to take a look at.
Gotcha.
And I don't know if you do, but I use a lot of tour examples.
Yeah.
And I'll use a lot of tour analytics just to tell them, like, you know, you don't have to be so hard on yourself, because I think a lot of the time students have these expectations that are way too high. You know, they want to, I think I should be able to hit my driver in the fairway all the time. Well, that's not going to happen.
Right.
You know, so just getting them to understand what the expectations should be and what the actual tour average is for something that they're trying to work on sometimes really opens their eyes.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the biggest one is putts on, or where the PGA Tour is 50-50. I mean, it's 8 feet 10 inches.
Yeah.
Everyone's like upset they missed this like 15 footer. I'm like,
Right.
dude,
You shouldn't sink that.
you two putted that, like you're
Yeah, you're doing well.
you're not losing anything.
Or Tiger from 120 in the middle of the fairway missed the green completely 30% of the time in his career. Now, here's the best player in the world.
Right.
And you get some like 5 handicap that misses a green from 120 yards and he's throwing his wedge.
Right.
It's just like, you shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure from in the year 2000, from I think it was 100 to 125 yards, Tiger was 80% in that year that he won the final 3 majors of the year. He missed the green 1 every 5 times with like nothing in his hand.
That's wild. Well, I mean, I always found personally that like where I got my expectations messed up was, you know, you'd watch a tournament on Sunday and they'd always show the leaders who are on fire and having
That's a good point.
A really good weekend, and like, you know, the stars are aligning, right?
Yeah.
And then you don't see the 95% of the field that is just playing normal or playing worse than normal, right? And you're just seeing all these incredible shots from the guys that are hot that week. And again, until someone like a coach or a mentor or my dad, I can't remember who kind of laid that out, could have been Gary, laid it out to me like, hey, like, you're not seeing everything. This isn't the whole picture. Like, don't get so worked up about it.
Well, and that's when we talk about tour average.
Right.
We're talking about the tour average. We're not talking about the guy winning the tournament.
Right. The final group on Sunday.
100%. Because they're going to be above that average for that week.
But you also think we're talking about the average of the best of the best. So if you think you're anywhere near this,
Think again.
right? Like,
Right.
just because you play men's league, like you're not going to go skate up. Like if the Oilers are down a man, they're not going to be looking for you in the stands, kind of thing.
Right.
Whereas
They'll lace them up.
Only if you're a goalie.
That's
exactly.
one time, emergency. But yeah, you're not going to go out there expecting to, skate around Connor McDavid. Whereas they think on the golf course, all of a sudden they're gonna, that 10 handicap's gonna have like a +7 all of a sudden.
Right.
And a 10 handicap in the grand scheme of things is pretty good.
Is a really good player.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's really interesting. So maybe just kind of jumping back to your progression there, Linz, like Leduc, and then your head pro. Your
It wasn't head pro there. I was assistant at Leduc, and then I moved on to Mayfair.
Okay.
And ran a teaching academy there for a couple years.
right.
And then came back to Leduc as the head pro. Actually, was in
gotcha.
Thailand when I got the phone call.
Gotcha.
So
there was a brief stop at Mayfair in between, right? And I remember those years.
yeah,
That's
that's when I was jumping in the lake with Maddie.
Not jumping in the way.
So what's it like starting an academy or being like the headmaster for this teaching school?
It was a lot of fun. You're talking the Mayfair?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was definitely a different role. But it was a lot of fun. I had responsibilities in the shop as well. So it wasn't just kind of teaching like I do now, but it was definitely a different thing than I was doing at Leduc.
Did you have, like, kind of when I first did this, I was full-time in the pro shop. Were you still 5 days a week back then?
Oh yeah, at Mayfair for sure.
So yeah, so you had to work your 40 in the shop.
Well, I was working 3.5 in the shop, and I had a full day and a half to be out there, and then anything else on top of that.
That's a good schedule that you had.
So it was, it was pretty good that way. Yeah.
And then, so going back to Leduc, maybe kind of contrasting those two roles. So you go to Leduc, you're now the head pro, the teaching really kind of has to turn down.
Oh yeah.
You know, where there's some things with the head pro position that you maybe liked a little, you know, again, you full salary for the whole year, maybe a little more structure. But I guess with the theme of the show, did you start to miss the teaching fairly quickly?
A little bit. You know, your time's taken with other things as well. Finding staff was always something that you want to find a good staff, because a good staff makes you look good.
Right.
So, I mean, and that was a tough thing to do at the time, getting people to drive out from the city to work out there. So that was something that I didn't really kind of look at when I first took the job.
Right.
It kind of just hit me. But yeah, it was just a different set of responsibilities that I had.
Do you think, based on, just for anyone that does want to become a PGA professional or something like that, do you find it was the salary that was tough to get people to, like, I feel that's a big barrier to keeping guys in the industry? And
well, back in our days, for sure, because I mean, 25 years ago when I started, it was like $1,800 a month or $1,600 a month. Like It was like bare bones kind of thing. And, you know, at that point, it was tough getting guys to drive out with their car. And so, yeah, it was definitely.
It was like 6 and 1s back then too for you. You have 2 days off back then.
I'd like to try to give my guys 2 days off, especially with how much driving they were doing.
Like when you're an assistant though, was it 6 days?
It was six on, 1 off. Yeah, for sure.
But there's still a couple clubs that do that, but yeah, it's the work-life balance was very difficult, or it's tough as a PGA professional actually to begin with.
Well, and that's not even factoring in that now you don't have a job in the winter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you layer that and like, you know, really tough grinding through the summer, very busy. And then you layer that on with now I'm also in October having to try to find something for the next 6 months-ish, right? Like
well, and a lot of the members expected it's such a short season that you should be there all the time.
Right.
And then when you ask them, you know, hey, in your job, do you want to be there 7 days a week?
Right.
You know, the answer was no a lot of the time.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
And like 8 hours a day is like a nice day.
Yeah, it was never just 8 hours.
Right.
Because I think sunlight here is, I mean, I know if you like typically shifts here start at 6 o'clock in the morning and then 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but when you're in the middle of June, it's light till 11, 15, 11:30.
Yeah, if you got the clothes, you've got a longer shift.
That's just your shift. Like you weren't paid extra.
And if you got the
for it.
clopen, you might as well just stay there.
Right. Yeah. Did you ever have to sleep there?
Fortunately, no.
Yeah.
Because when I was a head pro,
Make your own schedule.
make your own schedule. I was more of the guy that would open.
Yeah.
And hang around, you know, a 10, 12-hour day to try to cover as many people as I could get. I tried to be as good as I could to my staff because, like I said, it was a hard thing to get.
Right.
And I was already used to that
Right.
kind of time.
So you're head pro there. What's next? When did the teaching start to kind of come back into the fold for you?
Came back in the fold when I went to the country club after the Leduc stint there in 2010. Mainly because I was hired by Greg at the country club, and I was full 5 days in the shop that first year, but it was mostly from a financial standpoint that I just needed to teach a lot. Right. Or I wanted to as well. I really enjoyed it, but it made for long days.
Right.
You know, I was working probably 16-hour days.
Yeah.
So
question for you guys, like, is the teaching, unlike, I mean, like obviously you can have different arrangements with different courses, but the teaching is usually expected to be done after you've put your time in. You can't go and say, hey, I can duck out an hour early.
In the past, I mean, it's always dependent on your contract, I would say.
Right.
So typically, I think you would agree with this, like when you're starting out, they need your 40 hours in the shop for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you got to do whatever else on the side. Like weeks on end where it's like 60, 70 hours, like no problem.
Right.
As you grow, especially nowadays, there's like teaching professionals where you'll only have that responsibility, but it's still not very popular, I would say. Like there's not a ton of us.
No, they're mostly at the private clubs.
Yeah.
I know when I first went back to the country club with Greg, in the second year, he saw that I liked to teach a lot and wanted to teach a lot. So he was nice enough to give me like all open shifts. So I had afternoons to teach because there wasn't a lot of people that were like banging down your door for an 8 o'clock class.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So,
Yeah. And so when you get back into teaching, you're adding it all on top. How did that progress to now where you're just solely focused on teaching? Was it one slowly turned off while the other one turned up, or was there a point where you just kind of made that decision to go lean
for
into
the
teaching?
5 years that I was there under Greg, it got to the point where the work-life balance was getting tough.
Right.
Because it was like 16, 17 hours a day.
Yeah.
So then at some point there, I moved on to a year-round teaching gig at Golf Tech,
Right.
which was indoors, didn't rely on weather. Got some incredibly good training from that company down in Denver, and was just exposed to a lot of technology with teaching as well, which was a really good thing at the time.
Now, I've talked to a few Golf Tech guys. Did you find it was more that part of the teaching, or for what I've learned a lot from talking to guys that work there is like kind of how to do the lesson, because you guys only have half an hour, so everything's got to be like
the structure was you had to do it quickly, and you had to pick out what you're working on, give them a before and after, give them some notes, attach a few drills, and just make sure that they're practicing the proper way. So it really kind of got you to the point where you knew how to time manage a lesson. That was the biggest thing for me.
yeah, because you guys are doing like 12 to 20-ish a day, right?
Yeah. In the 6 years there was basically 10,000 lessons.
Wow.
So do the math.
Just going in, going out. And is the curriculum, I mean, you mentioned you picked on things to work on, but being a company like that, do they give you a lot of either curriculum or material just to adapt from, or is it just you're making the lessons from scratch?
The big focus there was basically tour averages. So they've done a lot of data on how an average tour player would move their body through a golf swing. And they had numbers and sensors that we'd put on people. So we would measure things like turn, tilts, bends, sways, and we would have a chart of basically how an average tour player, how many degrees of turn they would have at the top, how many inches of sway they would have in the downswing. So like there was like a template to kind of go off of, but it was just there to kind of give you a guide. Obviously everyone's different.
Yeah.
And everyone's goals were different as well. So that was the other thing. It was first time you met a student there, you'd have to do an evaluation of the student, and you'd kind of write down what their goals are and what you're going to work on. And you'd have that plan before you'd even get into it. So it really helped with formatting lessons in the future.
And the training you mentioned, was that through Golf Tech?
Yeah, at their head office in Denver.
Yeah. And how did that look? Was that like a week down there? Or?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Wow.
And like we were in class 12 hours a day with some incredibly knowledgeable guys.
Was this Nick Clearwater?
Yeah, like my days was with Nick Clearwater, a fantastic coach. Really good guy to learn from. We had a couple other guys there that were fantastic as well. And I mean, there was the business side of it, but like the teaching side is the thing that kind of really, it was great to get that kind of training, because I know the young professionals in the Canadian PGA, we don't get that. And that's something I think
that's
lacking a little bit.
I would say.
Yeah.
Because of money or just development of the program?
The focus just isn't quite, like, I know we have to take instruction to beginners, but it's not even, there's no like, I think when you go maybe further into it, there's not really like specific information about like technique. It's more about like the structure of the session.
Mm-hmm.
And back in my day, there wasn't even that. It was just like, oh, you got your card, now you can go tell someone how to play.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Figure it out.
So figure it out on your own. Yeah, just like we did our whole lives.
Going like coaching, like where you learned it from. Did you know about Nick Clearwater before? Like, were there other instructors that you had looked at quite a bit and you tried to like use their systems a little bit?
Maybe a little bit. Yeah. Like when I was teaching a lot, I was always looking at what other people were doing for sure. And I would pick and choose the things that I liked and things that I felt were like tangible. And you got to remember, you can't really try to fit everyone in the same mold. Everyone's going to be a little bit different.
So without YouTube, how are you getting that information? What was your sources? Magazines? Obviously golf. I can't remember when Golf Channel came out, but you got golf coverage at least. But yeah. What were your sources of
Golf Channel? They had the teaching, the Golf Fix, things like that.
Peter Costas,
just even watching tour events.
Right.
And just, you can pick up a lot of that stuff if you have a fairly decent understanding of it.
Were you a magazine guy? I remember as a kid, leafing through.
Golf Digest. Yeah, for sure.
It makes me kind of sad just thinking of how long it's been since everything's on your phone now. It's different, right? But like I used to really enjoy getting that Golf Digest.
See, and that's the problem. There's too much information at your fingertips right now, and that's where a lot of people get into trouble.
Right.
There's a lot, but it's not. The only thing I find with a lot of Golf Digest stuff now is there's not enough room to fully explain it. Because I can't remember who I talked to, but they had an article in there, but they had to take out
a whole bunch of
bunch of stuff because just for spacing, like each page is worth X amount. Yes. You can't get into it, and that's where if you really want to dive into it, YouTube's nice now because, the video could be. Well, just like this one's going to be, like, could be a couple hours.
Right.
And so that's the tough thing with like the short fix stuff is there's not enough info sometimes.
I guess the thing that was nice about Golf Digest though is you knew there was a level of vetting that went into choosing those people that would be allowed to write the articles. Yep. Where on YouTube, it's anyone, and a lot of people don't necessarily have the ability to do the filtering, right? Yep. So. Yeah, and that's interesting. Like I haven't read one in forever, so like the articles are smaller than they used to be too.
I wouldn't say smaller, but they've always just been like because you got to figure there's got to be a picture
condensed,
and then you got to put then the text has to be in a certain size, so you can only really take up. I think if you get 2 pages, you're a special person, or even longer. Like it's back then. I think they had the swings. Like remember when you open up, fold open, and
it had the eight or nine positions. Yeah.
That's a very valuable space there. So like you can only put so much information on like 2 pieces of paper,
right?
And it's a still picture as well, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I used to love those. You cut some of them out and put them on your wall as a young kid, right? Like
make a collage.
Totally. Those were really interesting.
The other tough part too, is. Your average amateur cannot move like a tour player. So yes, I think you actually asked me like, do I use examples? Like I'll use tour examples like in a certain way of like, we want to shift more towards this, but fully knowing this person has zero chance.
You're just trying to maximize their ability that they have.
Like the amount of mobility they have, strength, whatever. You're trying to use whatever they have to get a similar look or a similar action. But most people they don't know the difference between their ass and their elbow.
Yeah, you're 100% correct.
Like it's just people can't move, and that's always the shocking part too with a expectations, but B of like what they can do. Like they're not going to swing necessarily like the tour player,
right?
Well, and another thing that we struggle with, I think nowadays too, is with lessons being more, regular than they used to be, is people will come up and say, "Oh, I just need a lesson to kind of tune me up."
Right.
Well,
quick fix.
That doesn't really exist. I mean, I would love to give you the pill, right?
Right.
And say, go on your merry way and everything's going to be great. But at the end of the day, I don't think people realize if they're trying to make a change in their swing or they're trying to make a change in their ball flight, just really what's involved with that.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's takes some time.
Totally. I mean, we see that in the hockey space all the time too. And I personally think a big reason for that expectation kind of getting a little bit skewed for people is some of the social media and the YouTube, because a lot of those guys, not all of them, but a lot of them are trying to get clicks, they're trying to get eyeballs.
And they're promising
They're promising quick solutions because that is very appealing to everybody, right? So a lot of people see that and they're like, "Oh, I just saw this, Instagram video or YouTube video, and the guy said, I can change my swing or change my hockey stride with just this simple little watch this video or subscribe to my
3 easy tricks,
easy steps and whatever." And it's like, I don't think any of us would be doing what we do if we didn't believe you could move the needle.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is a challenge because a lot of people think it's just going to happen like that.
Well, I can get you to stop slicing, but then all you're doing is creating a hook problem.
Right.
So
It's also maintaining it because like
under pressure.
Like what I always say is like, okay, let's just say I wanted you to change the way you walk.
Mm-hmm.
You can change your gait for like an hour if you're thinking about it, but the second someone's like, "Oh, there's a fire over there. Like we gotta go." You're gonna start. You go right back to it, right? It takes time and training to like
Change a habit.
yeah.
Well, you got to change a pattern.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
basically what you're changing.
like a mental pattern.
Yeah.
Like it's ingrained in you. Like you're just gonna do it.
Yeah, 100%.
And you don't know. That's the other thing is like in golf, you don't know where this club is coming from
right.
necessarily.
A lot of people don't, and then when you show them on video, they're like, "Wow, that didn't feel like that."
Right.
So like, feels kind of an imaginary thing for a lot of people,
Right.
right?
Like on video, like obviously something that has evolved over the years. Do you find it to be an advantageous tool, or does it just depend on the student?
100%. I mean, regardless of whether the person says they don't do well visually, I think 95% of the people learn better visually.
Right.
When you can see yourself as a third party and go, really, that's what it looks like.
Right.
And like in the end, I don't like videoing myself too much because you get into the habit of like trying to make your swing look pretty. I don't really care what it looks like as long as it's effective.
Right.
Right. So if I'm hitting it well, I'm not really filming myself. If something's going wrong, I will, and I'll take a look at it. But for most people, if they're trying to make a change, like they're not turning or they're not doing something that we're trying to get them to do, to have them see it on video is huge.
Right. Well, I mean, like you said, people aren't going to necessarily have the same feeling of what's actually happening.
Yeah.
But then on top of that, like, you know, you can't dispute it anymore. Right. So if it's younger students that are maybe a little bit more in those years where they're looking to be independent, a little bit confrontational, like again, with hockey, sometimes it's challenging to use video, but it's always one of those things where it's like, it's objective. You can't debate it, right? Like you the video doesn't lie.
Like, I don't know about Matt, but I know when I'm trying to make a change in a student, I'll get them to try to exaggerate it as much as possible.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And so like, for example, if I want you to flex your wrist or keep your wrist flat, I want you to feel like it's like, you know, as flexed as you possibly can.
Right.
And when they do the exaggeration and I show them on video, like, you didn't do anything.
Right.
Then they're just like, whoa.
Eye opener.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a big thing in golf. I think is just to do it differently. Like
Yeah.
if you're chunking it all the time, like try to hit one thin. If you're hitting it right, like see if you can make it go left. Like I don't care how far left it goes. You got to figure out some of the club face to make it do something different. Because if you only do it a little bit, you're not really going to know what you had to do to get there. You have to
be extreme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there certain, like, obviously, like you said, Lindsay, every golfer is different. You got to treat everyone differently. But are there just some basic philosophies you do try to preach to every one of your students?
Some, I mean, I get a lot of people coming to me saying, I just want to hit the ball straight. And I kind of look at them, and sometimes I get looked at like I'm crazy, but you've got a flat surface, you're hitting a sphere and you're swinging in a circular motion. Good luck with that.
And there's
You know,
winds.
like there's always going to be some curve to the golf ball. It's learning how to play with the same curve all the time. You know, we're trying to hit it as straight as possible and have it fall to one side or the other. But the whole idea of I just want to hit it straight. That's something I try to instill in people when I first meet them. That, you know, this is, if you're always aiming at your target, you're never going to hit it close to your target because it's always going to be moving away to some degree.
Yeah.
You know,
I just think driver stats on the PGA Tour, like
crazy.
they're looking at 60 yards of width to hit into, and your average amateur thinks they can hit it within a 10-yard target.
I saw a stat on DJ one time where they tracked his driver all year and his miss right was 50 yards. His miss left was 55 yards. So he had 110 yard cone dispersion throughout the year.
That was an average.
And that was an average.
He's elite.
And he's an elite driver of the golf ball. So like when you get someone coming to you that says, I should hit every fairway, you're just like, no, you shouldn't.
Like he's in the top 1% of drivers in the world.
100%.
Like of the 1%, he's the 1%.
Well, yeah,
Like-
I think that really kind of comes back to just in a lot of ways those expectations being reasonable,
Being managed.
yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
Whether it's your performance in terms of winning or losing, or it's how straight you expect to hit the ball. Like I remember going through that as a junior. Like you just until you're told otherwise, you don't know what you don't know. And it was like, yeah, I should just try to hit it straight all the time. And then it's like, no, like you're gonna let yourself down 99% of the time. It's going to be frustrating. You have to try to think about a soft miss, ideally, right?
Or have an intermediate target and have the ball curve to the target.
Right.
You're not trying to, exactly.
Yeah.
So
I think the big thing with golf too is knowing like the one round of golf shouldn't be looked as like a test. Like it's just another opportunity to test your skills.
yeah.
Where some people, they put too much emphasis on like this round of golf. It's like,
I gotta break
it's
80
all
today.
for the
It's a fail.
long-term thing, right? Like, you gotta look at the bigger picture.
I have a student that I'm teaching right now that he had a goal that he wanted to play really well in this one event, and it was building up for like 9 months.
Yeah.
And when the event finally came, nerves got the best of him.
Yeah.
And I was like, you just put so much pressure on yourself for that one round of golf that it's not surprising that happened.
Right. Yeah.
So
Because you never know when you're gonna play well. Like you just kind of get hot in golf, I find. Like
Yep.
you just get your stretches. And like Lynn said earlier, like you never really have everything firing.
Yeah.
At best you have one,
Right.
right? Like
I don't know about you, but how many bogey-free rounds have you played in your life?
less than 5.
Yeah, I could count them probably on one hand, maybe getting into my second hand.
Yeah.
But like even like all the best rounds of golf I've ever played, I've always made a mistake.
Yeah.
I think I've actually done them all in tournament rounds too, actually.
That's good.
Yeah.
Surprisingly.
Well, and even then, like you said, it's you can still have a good result, but there might have been one component. Your bunker play still wasn't great.
Well, here's an example. When I was a junior at the Windermere, because I actually got myself a junior membership out there, so I had a couple courses to play at.
Yeah.
One year, I hit all 18 greens, made 0 birdies, and 1 hole in one. So shot 2 under.
Right.
Should be happy.
Yeah.
But the putter was terrible.
Yeah. Was it terrible, or were you hitting it like consistently good to like 15, 20 feet and nothing just kind of going in?
It was terrible.
Okay.
Should have shot the course record.
And it's one of those ones where you hit 18 greens, even though the odds are not in your favorite 15 feet, you'd still hope to sink maybe 1 or 2.
One,
of
yeah,
them,
you
right?
think you
'Cause
get 1 or 2 of them.
You
right?
gave yourself 18
But
chances,
you also got to think of it as
17. One went in.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
but you think with the average, it's over 100 rounds, not just the one.
Yeah. That's a good point, Matt.
Because it comes back. Like you might shoot 1,000,000 one day, but hey, you're making these crazy bogey saves, and who knows? Like we always forget our good breaks sometimes.
Yes.
Like everyone in golf, especially, or I guess in life in general, people always think about like everything, like all the bad stuff that happened. They never, like the stuff that's good could be so minute that you don't really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it could just be a nice little bounce off. Maybe it kicks out of rough soft for you, or
Yeah.
Well, and some of the best players, they've learned to forget the bad and remember the good.
Right.
You look at
Right.
like Ricky Fowler's demeanor on the golf course.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't have a better demeanor on the golf course, right? So
Yeah, I know that's something for me that has changed a lot over the years is like if I got a bad break, whatever it is, like the ball ends up in a divot or whatever, like it used to be very rattling. And now, like exactly like you guys said, the focus is because, we blasted in the trees. Sometimes it's going to kick back in the fairway. You got to remember that and be like, okay, well, I'm going to, over a big enough sample size, like I'm a true believer, you're going to get just as many good breaks as bad breaks.
well, yeah.
So there's no point dwelling on the bad ones and making it feel like it's 99%.
And everyone's going to get those too.
Totally.
Right.
Right.
that's just a life skill, just in general. Like just the general, like
For sure.
going back to like just sports in general, like they can help set you up for like things later. Like it doesn't always have to be like I'm going to be a professional athlete or whatever. It could just be you're learning more skills for you down the road. I mean, there's a reason why like I don't know what the stat is, but there's a lot of like NCAA Division I athletes, whatever, that are in prominent job positions over time because they learn so many skills over time that it helps them in the professional life later.
Well, I think what they learn too is they learn more from defeat than they do from winning.
Accountability, responsibility, stuff like that.
You learn a lot more about yourself when you lose.
Integrity, yeah.
Well, and again, like you guys said, especially in a sport like golf where you have so much defeat. And if you look at it the wrong way, it can really start to go in the wrong direction.
Actually, it's not even that part with golf. It's the fact that you police yourselves, basically.
Yeah.
Like, yes, there is a rules official, but I mean, if you see this guy more than a couple times in a day, like something weird's going on typically.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to call your own penalties.
Yeah.
You record, you score for another individual. Like it's all based on the honor system, basically.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a really unique and cool part about golf.
And that follows you, as you can tell with certain players on the PGA Tour.
Right. Yeah, for
Good
sure.
and bad.
Yeah.
So you'd mentioned the hole in one. Not as deep of a question, but how many do you have?
5.
That's pretty good.
All as a teenager, none as a pro.
Oh, really?
All as a teenager.
Wow, that's crazy. So you've gone a while without one.
I've gone a while.
You're due.
I should have had a couple as a pro, but just didn't get that break.
Any of them that stand out more than some of the others? Any in tournament play or anything like that?
One in junior inter club at the Glendale.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
And my opponent hit it to about a foot, and I one hopped it over him I'm like, you're good, you can pick it up.
Yeah.
So that was a good one.
That's awesome.
What's it like when you get, nowadays when you're, in your professional job, and then you talk about maybe getting the opportunity, or members get the opportunity to play with you. How does the golf game shift when it's more of a casual game versus times when you've played in tournaments or something's on the line?
Oh yeah, tournament golf is a completely different animal from that. Playing with members, like I said, I used to really get hard on myself for not playing well, because you feel you kind of have to when you're a younger pro. But later on, like when I go play with members, I really don't. I'm not out there to really focus on my game.
Yeah.
I'm there to kind of give them kind of guidance, advice, and just they can see kind of what you're doing on the golf course as well. Do I care what the number is at the end of the day? Not really.
No.
I guess it's part of the job, and it's part of the job, really.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And you probably make conversation just more, again, it's casual.
Well, it's
and
a good way to
learning about the member and getting to know them.
Absolutely. It helps you build relationships for sure.
Do you find that's something that you try? I mean, obviously, like at the country club, it's difficult to be able to get tee times and not, have people getting upset about certain things taking away from their availability. But is that something that even over the course of a season, if you're seeing a student regularly, you try to mix in some time on the golf course?
Oh, 100%, as much as we can.
Yeah.
I mean, the last couple of years, obviously, like, has been tough.
Right.
And because we just haven't had the traffic. But I think with the new opening next year and how busy it's going to be, getting out on the course with some of the students that I teach regularly is going to be a really big advantage.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun too. It's a nice way to break it up sometimes.
And typically, how often do you try to weave that in? It probably depends on how often they're seeing you, that type of stuff. But
I would try to weave it in at least, if someone's seeing me throughout the year, probably at least once a month with that individual. I'd like to kind of do stuff like that, or try to get a group together of people that I teach and kind of go do it out with like more than one person at a time.
Right.
And it's a good thing to see what they do on the golf course too, because I've got a lot of students that I don't see what they do on the course. I see what they do out on the range when I'm coaching them. And there's some people that are completely different. Like it's unbelievable how different it is on the golf course than it is on the range.
For sure.
So it helps.
Yeah. It's crazy important because it's one of the only sports where you don't learn on the playing field. Like when you're on the range, it's not the playing field. Perfect flat lie. There's no consequences. Like,
And you can't emulate the pressure of playing on the range. You can't.
Like I've gone to like a practice hole somewhere, like you're chipping around forever. Just the second you get on the course and try to do it, like it's just different. And I'm talking like I went from like 100 yards away to somewhere else. And I'm like, whoa, this is weird now.
Right.
I kind of think of it sometimes as like if you were to learn to swim, you're going to go in a pool. You're not going to go into the bathtub. Like the bathtub is like the driving range.
That's a good point.
Right.
It's like it's a body of water. You can do all the movements, but there's no consequences. No, it's not nearly even the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good analogy. What are some of the biggest differences that you find between a player's game on the range and on the course?
Their mental approach. Like the pressure that they put on themselves.
Yeah.
For some reason, a lot of people, when they play with people they're not used to playing with, are really nervous that they feel like they have to play well. Kind of like I felt as a young professional. And I kind of tell all of them, like, at the end of the day, nobody cares how good you are. All they care about is that you do it relatively quickly, because they're focusing on their game.
Right.
And they probably have the same worries.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everyone's being judged.
Yeah, you're not being judged on your game.
Right.
Is basically what you try to get through.
More etiquette, are you compatible on the course and having a good time? And
That's by far
all
and away,
those
I think,
things.
the most important thing. It's actually something I teach a lot now in my
Pace
group
of play and all
classes
that.
is like where to park the cart.
Right.
yeah,
Right. That's a it's actually something that people screw up the most.
And you wouldn't believe it, but it's to us, it's common sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, it is unique in the sense that even in men's league hockey, right? Like you have divisions. You don't necessarily have a 24 handicap playing with a 4. I mean, that's the beauty of golf, is that you can have such a range of skill and still have a good time. But the thing that keeps that together are the things that you guys are talking about.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we've all played with people that are way worse handicap wise than us. And yeah, they might lose a few more balls and whatever, but overall golfers are very willing to do that. And it's usually an exciting and different type of time, but it's those intangibles of not parking the cart on the green. And like, doesn't matter, it doesn't matter how good you are, how bad you are, you just can't do some of those
It's more
things,
so park
right?
it close to the green, not
Yeah.
really far away.
Right.
On the opposite side.
See
Yeah.
those stakes. That's where you
This
you
is
go.
a general life skill for any kid growing up, just to learn how to, those etiquette things, it goes a long way.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And you get that at the private clubs quite a bit. As a kid growing up at a private club, you learn that quickly.
The members almost help teach you, raise you almost in a certain way.
Absolutely.
Like they hold you accountable at a very young age, which we experience too, right? You get held accountable very early, which is very important. If you can be accountable at 12 years old,
Yeah. Well, learning to respect your elders, there's a lot of good life lessons, saying please and thank you to the people that are working there.
Because
raking your bunkers, it's lots of good habits.
Absolutely. But public courses, that was a big eye opener working at Leduc for the first year. Just some of the stuff you run into.
Right.
Like we ran into people every bogey, they're taking off a clothing piece. So by the time they're on 16, you had guys in their underwear. So it's just to them, this is acceptable, right?
And high heels.
So just crazy. Yeah.
High heels on the driving
High
range.
heels and Daisy Dukes.
I mean, maybe a bit off topic, but I think that is why you join a private club, is so you can, you're with more like-minded people. Like golf's the important part to us. We're going to be social, yes, but we want everyone to kind of operate under the same sort of
Rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Expectations.
Standards.
Yeah. Standards.
Etiquette. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I guess this is something you kind of mentioned earlier, but I wanted to kind of note it towards the end of the show. The dynamic between a group lesson versus a one-on-one. In hockey, I've had the privilege of being able to do some one-on-one sessions. I haven't done them for a year or so, just simply because the cost of ice is so expensive. I do the off-ice one-on-one sessions still, which is awesome because it's just so rare in hockey, being a team sport, and then having the cost of ice. It's very prohibitive. The contrast between the two is amazing in my opinion. Like in a one-on-one, you can just truly lean into that student, and the parents. If the parents have specific things that they want you to focus on, that they've identified that the student is struggling with, you can get a lot of very focused work done in 60 minutes. Contrast that with a team, which is typically 15 to 18 students. Now you're starting to have to think more about the group. How do I keep this moving, get enough people going, not have them standing around too much? That ice cost is sitting there too. So you're thinking, okay, we need to get the most out of this. And then if you're going into a group of, 18 plus, now it's even slightly different, where it's just, you try to think about the individuals, but it becomes harder. So, I mean, again, it's to me, the analogy I always used was a one-on-one tutoring session at university or school versus a professor teaching a lecture with 400 students. The dynamic is going to be so different there. I think we're all very driven to still try to provide that individual touch, but it does become more difficult. So what are some of the things that you try to do to blend those two different teaching environments?
That's a tough thing. Because when you're running a clinic, let's say on a certain aspect of golf, let's say, there's going to be people that are in the group that already know how to do that,
right?
With what you're talking about. There's going to be some people that don't.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to find the balance. You don't want to have 90% of your time spent with one or two people out of your 6 to 8 people in the group.
Yeah.
I tend to focus more on an individual basis, kind of with the way I'm set up. And in the last 2 years, not having a course, that definitely hurt, or a short game area, that definitely hurt, kind of doing some group stuff. So I'd like to get back to doing a little bit more of that, but that's where you got to be. give out your information, and then just you got to look at each individual and assess them quickly to what they need.
Yeah.
Because you just can't be the same with everybody.
Right.
You know,
So
I don't know. Like, what do you
like? I like to do a lot of group stuff. I'll mix in some individual stuff, but like what I did is I kind of broke up into like certain teams where I'm on the course with them 1 week. We're off course, like doing short game, or we could actually go on the course actually some days too. But what I find that's really important with the group is you still have that same pressure feeling.
Yep.
You get them to compete with each other, kind of like what you did as a kid.
Growing
You
up,
can
yeah.
have little games to create that competition within the group that can help as well. Obviously, for like technique work, it gets a little more difficult because then again, you need to spend more time with that person. I typically save those for the winter if I can.
So your groups, you're running them kind of where you have like multiple sessions with the same group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It gets me on the course with them. They're all together. Like, 'cause I like to do like the competition stuff with them.
Yeah.
Now, are you able to, because a lot of it is just when people can make it, right? Life is busy. There's a lot going on. If you've got a group open at 6 o'clock on a Thursday, that might work for a 2 handicapper up to a 36, right?
So
Is there any way to, and I know logistically it's very difficult to do, but is there any way to try to bring the skills of the group or the initial skill set of the groups together?
it's tough.
Yeah.
I just make it where it's like, this is the time I'm doing it.
Right.
If you can fit into it, you fit into it.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's how you have to almost do it as a coach to a certain degree. You gotta like
To a certain degree, yeah.
you gotta play around with what like most of your clients can do, but at the end of the day, you gotta just do what you can make
Right.
available to still keep your work-life balance in check.
So Lindsey, in your groups, and again, I'm always contrasting with hockey, but you can go, let's say you have a group of 8 or 10.
Yeah.
You can go and spend a couple minutes with each person and give them a slightly different plan and curriculum, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is
Within
great.
what we're working on that day.
Right.
And, once again, my position that I have, I kind of set my own hours or based on whenever I have lessons. So I'm really flexible in the sense that if certain people can't make it at the time I'm doing it, I might just create another class at another time where other people can make it.
Right.
You're just trying to service the membership as well as you can.
Right.
But yeah, I always try to make time for each individual person. You kind of have to. You can't let anyone fall through those cracks.
Right.
Because then they kind of feel like, it wasn't really worth doing.
They
And
got
it might
left
discourage
behind.
them. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Do you, again, different players are looking for different things. Matt and I have talked about this before, like the trend in hockey too, like you've got a shooting coach, you got a stick handling coach, like it's becoming even more specialized. And I still believe that there's people that are capable of teaching all of those things, but to be competitive, a lot of people have tried to put themselves into smaller niches, and some of them are very good at that. Do you find any pressure to say this is strictly a mid-iron session, or are you still able to just offer, golf is very dynamic. There's a lot of tools that you need to have in your toolbox. Is it still okay to offer just, I'm going to make you a better golfer versus saying this is only a putting session or this is only a driving session?
Oh, absolutely. And that's the whole idea of when I meet someone I've never seen before, running through an evaluation and kind of talking about all the aspects, short game putting, approach shots, mid irons, driving, stuff like that, and see where they feel their weaknesses are,
Right.
and build a game plan based on kind of what they're looking to fix.
Right.
And then maybe a lot of the times they're not super realistic with themselves, or you know what I mean? So like setting some of the goals that are a little bit more realistic with them. So you have a plan before you start with them.
Right.
But yeah, absolutely. Like all aspects of it, I would be looking at for each individual.
You find one of the toughest things with goal setting is the amount of time they're going to put into it, though.
Yep.
That's probably the biggest one, I would say.
The amount of time and how they're going about making the change. Because if you think you're going to just do it, if I'm going to tell you something and you're going to just make full swings and think it's going to change, it's not going to change.
Right.
I mean, we set out a way to do it, and you got to have the patience to do that. Right.
And it's more than just the 60 minutes with you, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Like I remember an older gentleman at the country club asked me one time, I was teaching a really good player there, ex-Canadian tour player, probably know who I'm talking about. And he said, "Why are you taking lessons?" And I kind of looked at the member and I said, you do realize all the PGA professionals have a coach.
Right.
So just because you're good doesn't mean you don't need like a second set of eyes on you.
Yeah, you can always get better.
You can always get better.
It seems golf, there was Tiger Woods had the driving coach or putting coach or wedge coach. It almost seems like other sports have taken on that mantra, because in hockey there never used to be, maybe a goalie coach, but there never used to be stick handling coach,
Skating coach.
skating coach. I mean, probably skating coach might have been, around, but it seemed a lot of those specialized coaches maybe stemmed from golf.
I think it has for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Golf's been a trendsetter. I think part of that is because, again, it's an individual sport where you can do things against the grain and not have to worry as much about subjective opinion of a coach or a general manager. And they've just, to me, golf has been able to sort of be on the cutting edge of evolving a lot quicker than a lot of other sports. And it paves the way in a lot of ways. Even training aids, right? Like, yes, I think we talked about they've gotten over the top.
You ever seen Tin Cup?
Yeah. But golf, I feel like the golf training aids started generations ago. I can remember them from when I was a little guy, and the other sports are just starting to kind of come around. And a lot of that is like, if you show up to a team skate in hockey with some goofy training aid, you're going to get roasted. Like, you can't just go to the range and do your own thing, and it doesn't matter what your teammates say. Like, you have to think, now, should you be caring about that too much? There's a balance there. But you have to be aware of that in a team environment where individually, one of the beauties of that is you have more freedom to do what works for you, no matter how
100%.
stupid or goofy it looks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So, no, it's cool. And I think to Taylor's point with the coaching, same thing. Like, that's starting to happen with hockey, but the specialized golf coaches were way earlier. Yeah, for sure.
I think it's just more specialization just in general, just in like business, like think about, I know everyone hates HR, but like there's like HR departments. There's like, there's so many different departments for everything now. Like, I think that's just the way we're kind of moving in a certain aspect, which I think for certain circumstances, it's really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if you're looking like a tour player, then yeah, like you kind of need to separate it a bit, I find. More
well,
so for
look at their
time and
teams.
access.
Look at their teams they have now.
Yeah, it's more for like time and access.
The last question I had was just, we talked a bit about technology, obviously, golf tech, some of the things that they were doing there, the video and how you've used that and that evolved over your teaching career. Specifically, TrackMan, how have you found it's obviously something that's just exploded, and it seems like every PGA player has one on the range these days. They're super fun to use in the winter. It's an amazing invention. What are your personal thoughts on TrackMan?
Yeah, I mean, TrackMan's a really good tool to use. But once again, it's a tool that if you go down the rabbit hole, it could be detrimental as well.
Right.
It's definitely there. It's definitely there to help with certain things. I mean, there was a good example of Steve Elkington said, he went on TrackMan one time to see what his angle of attack was relative to the tour average. And he goes, my angle of attack was nowhere near the tour average. And he goes, but who hits better irons than I do?
Right.
Right. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's there as a tool. He felt it was a great tool for driving. And TrackMan definitely is a fantastic tool. It's definitely a much better tool outside, I would believe.
More accurate.
Well, it's a Doppler radar system.
Right.
It needs to see as much flight as it possibly can.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's fantastic outside. And indoors, it's getting a lot better now. But once again, I have a couple students that pound ball after ball after ball after ball in a simulator, and they're just looking to try to get the same number every time, and that's just an unrealistic thing.
Do you find it takes away some of the awareness of actually still having to feel your swing if you're constantly just able to look at a monitor and see the numbers?
It takes away the ability or the art of playing the game.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there's like I said earlier today, there's a point where you got to stop playing golf swing and start learning how to actually play the game, learning how to post a score.
Right.
Right. And I mean, you can hit as many balls as you want inside, but when it comes tournament time, you're not on a mat, you're not on a perfectly flat lie, you're not in perfect conditions. I mean, there's so many other factors out there. So you got to learn how to play the game too. Right. And that's where some of the artistry has come out of the game.
Yeah.
Back in Jack's days and like the 70s and 60s where they didn't have that. And the technology was way worse in what they were using for equipment. I mean, they just they all were so unique with their swings and just did it different ways.
Do you think, like, because of the popularity in golf, well, obviously over the last 5 years because of what happened, normal Joes are picking up the game, but to your point of not learning how to play the game, manage the course, they're just going to the driving range and whacking buying 200 balls and whacking them, whereas maybe they should go park and play 9 instead of the range.
And I mean, and that's great. I mean, if you want to go to the range and pound balls and that's what you want to do in the game, great. I mean, that's I've had people come into Golf Tech and say, I don't want to get better. I just want to hit my drive 300 every time.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well, let's see what we can do.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Didn't care what he shot, just wanted to hit it as far as he possibly could. And, good on you. That was the one skill he wanted to try to learn. So whatever you want to do in the game, that's totally up to you.
Right.
Now, do you find with guys hitting 200 balls, though, like he's not taking that time in between the shots?
Oh, absolutely.
To figure it out. Like I always say, like for me to go through, I don't know if I hit a large basket this year, but I think in Millwoods is like 90 balls in a large.
Yeah.
This thing's taken me like 2 hours.
It should.
Right. Whereas I'll see people go through like 2 of those in less than an hour.
And half of them with a driver.
Yeah.
They're working on their pace of play. No.
But it's like when you're not concerned about the targets and you're just whistling away, like even finding a sim, you can still learn how to align yourself as long as you do the bay trace or offset properly or whatever, but you can still kind of learn that stuff because you're only just looking down. There's no intent to go anywhere.
Well, I mean, and on a range too, a good shot on a range, throw it on a golf course, all of a sudden it's not a good shot.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Something that looks good on your range is not necessarily going to look good on the hole.
Right.
The other thing back to numbers too, you're saying is knowing that there is an expectation, like knowing the expectation of what the range is.
Yes.
Because I don't know the exact stats, but you're taking this club, the downswing takes like, a third of a second or something. And you got to take this massively open club face and square it up. And the difference of 2 degrees is going to send this thing off the planet.
Yeah. Well, the stat from a driver perspective at 240 yards, if you're 1 degree off with your path, you're looking at a 13-yard dispersion right and left. Yeah. If you're 1 degree off with your face, you're looking at a 19-yard dispersion.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, I mean, and there's no, to the eye, you're not going to tell the difference between those two.
Right.
Right. And especially swinging at 90 miles an hour, let's say.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. As the club speed goes up, those numbers get worse.
100%.
Yeah. Now, in terms of the time in between those shots, so you guys, Matt mentioned alignment, taking some time to do that. What about after the shot? What are some of the things that a player should be trying to think about after they take a shot instead of just getting up and hitting that next one?
Well, I would just be taking time and going through the same routine every time like you do on the golf course. I mean, you hit a shot on the golf course, maybe once every 5 minutes?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Probably somewhere around there?
Yeah.
Sometimes at best. If you hit 2, as I always say, if you hit 2 shots within 30 seconds,
you didn't hit one of them good.
Something really, that or you're tapping it in or something.
Yeah.
Like something really bad happened.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So, to practice properly, that's a skill in its own. Right. And learning how to try to emulate playing on the range. It's going to the range isn't necessarily about hitting perfect shot after perfect shot. It has nothing to do with it. Right. That's not really what that area is for.
Yeah.
Think like in around the golf, if I get full swing yardages every time, like that's like a unicorn.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You're getting these random yardages. There's random wind that you can kind of feel because usually you're surrounded by trees. You're kind of guessing like, what's this thing doing up there?
A lot of factors. Yeah.
The lies are different. Elevation is different. Like there's nothing like you're just hitting random shots all the time.
Well, and that's where like working with a launch monitor indoors, you have a baseline of what perfect conditions are. Mm-hmm. And then when you're outside, you have to make those adjustments on the fly. Right.
Yeah. That's the playing golf
that's
part.
That's where you got to feel it. That's where you can't just be mechanical.
Right. Do you encourage students when they are at the range to still try to visualize different scenarios? Like just don't hit your stock 7-iron all the time. Hit some punches, go up and down the bag.
Absolutely.
Like try to mix it up as much.
Try
as
to
possible.
hit it low. Try to hit it high. I mean, one of the drills I do just for myself is face manipulation. So like trying to hit it with as open a face, as closed a face, as square a face.
Right.
As, like if you sat behind me and watched me practice, you'd be like, this guy's all over the place.
Right.
Right. But I'm kind of working on face awareness.
Right. Yeah.
Or, you know, and there's other things that you can be doing, but it's not just hitting full shots. I don't know what you'd think, man. But.
Yeah, I like to simulate the play as much as possible. Like,
You can play 18
like
on the
switch up
range.
clubs, because like you don't hit the same club back to back.
Right.
Pretend you're playing a hole, right?
So it's like the drive, and you got to hit. And this is the nice thing with TrackMan now that I use a lot myself is I like to just play, because that way it's like I'm hitting a drive, then I'm hitting an approach, then I'm hitting a drive, then it's switching up every time. And that's kind of a skill in itself, I find, especially with newer golfers, is you get them hitting a drive or something, all of a sudden they got to go putt, and they're still wired, and they're moving this thing like crazy. So it's like the adaptability is so important, because the pieces of the game are so different. Like when you're hitting a drive, you're trying to launch this thing as far as possible.
Right.
You get close to the green, you're trying to get this thing to come off the face as slow as possible with control.
Yeah, I play more simulated golf nowadays than I play real golf for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a super cool technology that seems to have had a lot of benefits.
Yeah.
Right. So, awesome. I think, you know, we should start working to wrapping up here. I don't know if you guys have any more questions before maybe kind of give Lindsay the final one here, but
Yeah, I got, you know, as you mentioned, like, you know, the work hours you put in as a assistant pro, and then doing the teaching, and it almost sounds like who in the heck would want to be a pro and get their card. But is there like a work shortage, or did not have enough golf pros going to school in Canada right now, and maybe how do we get more people attracted to your profession?
That's a good question. That's a real good question, because we have a very high percentage of people that get into it young, and then realize, you know, hey, this life isn't really what I was looking for. And then they get out and start doing some other things through people that they met through the game.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's a tough thing retaining good pros. So that's a good question.
You have to love being at the facility.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to be there all the time, but you have to love being around the game.
Right.
For sure.
Because you're not going to get financially rewarded till typically much later, if at all.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So money cannot. I always kind of tell new pros this, like, financial goals can't really be they can't be. It's impossible. They can't be your motivator to get into the business.
Right.
You'll be disappointed.
You'll be very, very disappointed. And never, I think, Dallas Contero told me this one. Don't, if you're on salary, don't ever think about the hourly wage of what it would kind of work out to be, because
That's a good point.
you're not going to
I'm
get
making
paid.
$10 an hour.
Right. Make you go crazy.
Yeah. But I mean, it can also still provide you a pretty nice life.
Yes.
Yeah.
But provided you love the game and being there.
Yeah.
Because if you don't like golf, it's going to be a hard job.
And there's a lot of different avenues you can go down, you know, so you just got to find what really works for you and what you love to do.
Like, especially nowadays, like you can, you know, there's the management side, there's event planning now, there's
Reps.
reps,
Right.
the teaching side, the fitness side, mental approach, equipment companies, clothing, like there's just lots of avenues. It doesn't necessarily have to be at a facility all the time, but we do have a tough time finding quality professionals. I think it's the financial barriers.
It's
the
the
biggest
financial
one.
barriers keeping them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned the fitness side. That was actually a question I forgot I had. So like you guys said, there's only so much that can be done with a 60-minute lesson with you, Lindsay, right? Is that a piece? So for me in the hockey world, it's, again, people expect to skate like Connor McDavid after one 60-minute session. And like, there's things that you can do, but 60 minutes on the ice is not going to make major differences to a deeply entrenched habit. You have the genetic piece, you got all these other factors, right?
Yeah.
Again, when we are on the ice, standing around and just trying to get into those low positions, you can't be wasting the ice time. And a lot of it to me is your ability to get comfortable in a 90-degree squat. If you can't get down in that position because of a lack of flexibility or leg strength, you're never going to have the longest stride you possibly can. So you have to take care of some of these things off the ice.
Yeah.
Do you guys ever find that being a piece that you have to talk to your students about, hey, like there's a foundational athleticism here that needs to be taken care of, and then we can see maybe a little bit more advancement?
That's very specific to the person.
Yeah.
I mean, to the average everyday, just, golfer who just does it for fun,
Right.
that we teach, I would say probably no.
Right. Yeah.
But like to the student that you're teaching that's trying to get to college or that's trying to do something with his game,
Right.
Or wants to maximize his game as best as possible, then yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at all these PGA Tour players, they've got everything from workout guys, mental coaches, nutritionists, swing coaches of all different types, agents, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, it really depends on the person, I think.
Right.
Yeah, I find when you're, especially with your average person, they're working X amount. It's tough enough to get them to work on their own. I think, like we said earlier, it's tough enough to get them to work on their own game. That
we're trying to get them to do.
Honestly, the fitness side it's probably some of the lowest hanging fruit in a certain way, but to get them to even do that is tough. So you almost got to pick your battle.
Right.
And it's like, if I can barely get you to work on your game twice a week, I'm not even going to try to introduce a fitness component, because we're just adding more to the plate. That's just not going to go anywhere.
There's certain people you don't want to overwhelm, right? Like,
Yeah.
You just want to,
Well, it's more so you don't want to spend time on it when you know it's not going to
Benefit.
Right.
benefit or happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not going to benefit anyone in the long run.
Totally. Awesome. Well, probably the last question here, just to kind of wrap things up. We like to kind of finish with this thought. You had kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier. Going back, so imagining you're 10 years old again, or some age in your U Sports years. You've now got all the information that you've gathered through your journey. Is there anything that jumps out to you that you would want to do differently?
For me, it was if I wasn't having fun, I wasn't going to do it.
Right.
So like my advice would be, like, if you're not having fun and you don't love it, it's going to be really difficult to do.
Right.
And if you're not doing it for yourself,
Right.
if you're doing it for someone else, that's probably the biggest thing that I would say,
Right.
is like, you're doing it for you.
And there's an opportunity cost there too. So, I mean, not to speak for you, but if hockey, like if you found that you weren't, loving it as much, if you would have quit in grade 11 potentially instead of grade 12, you might have had a little more time to do some other things in grade 11. So, I mean, again, things happen for a reason, but do you feel like there was any of those sort of pivot decisions that you maybe would have liked to have done at a different point in time?
I mean, I looking back now, like with all the opportunities kids have to get into college with golf, I mean, that didn't really happen in our day.
Right.
But I mean, if I was to be brought up in this day and age,
Right.
that's probably something I would have looked at a little bit harder as a teenager.
Right.
To have more of an end goal with the actual playing of the game.
Right.
But just didn't really have that ability or that accessibility in my time.
Right.
The opportunities are much less back then. Like, they
Big
didn't
time.
start taking guys from Canada till kind of that Risden era, like in the early 2000s. It was still like kind of rarish for some Canadians to go down.
Yeah.
But it's definitely much broader now. Like, there's way more. Also, like the fact to get in touch with a coach back then, like, you wouldn't even know where to start. There was no internet. There was probably no pin college guide back then. I don't even know if that's still even a thing, but
Not to date you, but you might have to send a letter, right?
Yeah, there was no email. You'd have to phone, and there'd be a cord attached to it.
Right.
so ring.
But yeah, I mean,
Rotary
now
bell.
there's so many kids that are just putting videos and stuff on YouTube and trying to go that way, right? So very different era for sure.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I mean, I think that was a really good point too. Like with that question, it's not just going back into those years. It's okay. Am I going back into the environment that existed then, or am I 10 years old again today?
Yeah.
Right. Those are two very different situations. So
Absolutely.
great. Well, we really want to thank you, Lindsey, for coming in. Appreciate your time, and this has
my
been
pleasure, guys.
Awesome conversation, and thank you.
Thanks, Lindsey.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
To help support the community, please visit our website at usports.community and follow us at usportscommunity on all social media.
You can also follow and rate our podcast on Apple, Spotify, and Audible. Subscribe and like our video feed on YouTube.
Links for all our platforms can be found in the show notes.
Best way to help grow the youth sports community is to comment on and share our content with your fellow parents and athletes.
This episode was produced by Nick Hussey of Hussey Multimedia, and hydration was provided by Earthwater.
The youth sports community is proudly presented by Nuance Hockey and Ma Golf.
Nuance Hockey provides detail-driven on- and off-ice development in the Edmonton area. For more information, please visit our website at nuance.hockey and follow us on social media.
Ma Golf provides elite coaching for golfers of all skill levels at the Millwoods Golf Club in Edmonton. Our apparel is provided by Bird and Barley, prairie-inspired, golf-focused. To receive 15% off your next order, please visit birdandbarley.com and use our promo code YSC15.
We look forward to you joining the community next time.